across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
He attempted to make his victory speech, but I think he was wrong to blame his absence on the alleged credible threat to his safety, which was not confirmed by Essex police, and added to Reform's ongoing victimhood narrative. He should have just said, balls to the lot of you, I won't be there. What do you think? 03444991000. But here's the real deal. What's going to happen now will continue a circus that shames parliamentary democracy. The moment Farage's by-election triumph was confirmed, the Parliamentary Standards Office announced that the investigation into his £5 million bung from crypto billionaire Christopher Harborne was back on. What a surprise. Not. They'll find him guilty, suspend him for long enough to trigger another by-election, which inevitably he will win. And what will all that have proved? That despite the political establishment's determination to bring Farage and Reform down, the plodding Westminster bubble gang aren't good enough to achieve their aim. And who really suffers at the hands of this ongoing sorry spectacle? The great British public, who deserve better than this. Do you agree with me that all those Tories lining up this morning to repeat their parrot-like condemnations of Farage's 5 mil are in for a rude awakening? Will their threadbare campaign backfire on them and actually strengthen Reform? 03444991000. In other news, Tory grandee Edwina Currie jokes that all these proposed new massive migrant camps will have to be serviced by brothels. But, jokes aside, putting thousands of young men right into the heart of rural communities is clearly going to cause a major women's safety problem. 03444991000. Meanwhile, why the hell is Vodafone giving thousands of free SIM cards, SIM cards, to British charities who hand them to illegal migrants in northern France waiting to break into Britain? 03444991000. Also, on today's action-packed show, Andy Burnham doubles down on Labour's nut zero claptrap and instructs us that we need to stick to the ruinously expensive clean energy policies that are wrecking the UK economy. 03444991000. Crazy Ed Miliband may no longer be Energy Secretary, but his gormless green insanity lingers on. Isn't that special? 03444991000. Plus the wonder of departing White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt. Not only the best ever White House Press Secretary, but also, without a doubt, the best looking. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Friday afternoon together in the studio. is the best-looking girl in Britain and Australia. She is talk reporter Samara Gill. How'd you like that for a bit of sexism?
Where's your guard dog? Guide dog? I can't even talk properly. I've been up since guard dog. Where's your guard dog to maul my face off?
You're trying to nick my joke.
Yeah, I am, and I can't even do it. I've been up since 4 a.m. I've been covering this bloody by-election. I blame Farage for that sentence failure. But,
let's talk about it for a sec, because you've been there, you've been interviewing people all morning. I saw you paddling or knee-deep in the ocean there.
It was rough.
I know Clacton quite well. My parents live down the road from there in Frinton. A good, solid, old-school seaside resort with old-school, solid people. Massive Farage supporters, and they proved that. I don't blame him for calling this by-election. You know, he wanted to stick two fingers up to the establishment, and it certainly worked. But now this circus is going to continue, isn't it? And he is going to get found guilty by the Parliamentary Standards Committee, and they'll 100%. Then they'll suspend him for long enough to trigger another by-election, and the people of Clacton and the people of this country will continue to be submitted to this stupefying circus. It's a sorry spectacle. Let's just remind ourselves of what Farage said after he learned that he had won.
Been advised tonight by Essex Police that there is an organised campaign to disrupt and degrade the result that will take place in a few hours' time. And once again it shows you the sheer intolerance, the sheer loss of fundamental democratic principles that those that went before us fought in world wars to fight for and preserve. I regret to say, and by the way, I'm not scared of these people, far from it, but I'm damned if I'm going to stand on a stage having won a resounding victory, a ringing endorsement of all that I've tried to fight for and you try to fight for, and be demeaned and humiliated by nobodies, and I will not, sadly, be attending the count.
Just leave it at that. Why did he do the, there's been a credible threat, and then Essex Police immediately said, no, we haven't even spoken to him? Why did he do that? Why didn't he just say, I'm damned if I'm going to stand there?
Because the security question has been the common theme this entire by-election. It was a crazy turn of events, to be honest. He went and announced that he was going to stand in Clacton to rehabilitate his image, essentially, have the people decide, not Westminster, whether he was guilty or not. Then there was a triumph initially, but it pretty much fell flat a couple of days after, media-wise. And then literally the day after that, Anne Widdecombe got murdered. Now, of course, we can't really talk about that because it's an open case now, but we do know that she was murdered, and apparently, you know, what will come out about that is pretty horrendous, especially the potential connection to Farage and so on and so forth. So security has been a massive problem throughout, but I do think now there's a lot of push and pull between Essex Police and Farage's security team, because you're right, I mean, he should have just owned up to it and said, I don't want to be part of the charade that the Tories, the Greens, the Lib Dems were trying to make this election, and I don't want to do that at the vote count. But again, he pinned it on security risks, and he made that announcement at Clactonbury / Farage.
This is going to be the annual event, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where the Reform supporters and Farage gathered just down the road. And they had a right old party, obviously, last night.
It was about 12 kilometres or miles away from
and they immediately dubbed it Clactonbury. I think it might be an annual event now, don't you?
Yeah, it looked pretty fantastical, honestly. I was there were all the MPs there, there was pints flowing, there was live music, and Farage was making his victory speech many hours before he was actually declared the winner. But, of course, we kind of knew what was going on there. I think it's interesting, you know, we need to now ask, now that we've had a full day of coverage, what is the point? Where can we move on from this? What did it prove? Are we in a different place now from where we were 6 weeks ago? The answer would probably be no.
And we're going round the houses again. I guarantee you, you know, the Parliamentary Standards Committee just couldn't wait. They were chomping at the bit. As soon as it was confirmed that Farage had won, they announced almost instantly, right, the investigation into the £5 million is back on. I'm getting very bored with this £5 million. Look, you know, I can see why some people would be jealous of Farage getting that free gift from crypto billionaire Christopher Harborne, but whether or not he broke parliamentary rules is like right on the edge, because this was at a moment when he'd said he'd quit politics. He had not announced any plans to return, to try to become an MP again, but it turns out that the rules mean that any kind of donation or gift or whatever that you've had in the 12 months before you become an MP, you have to declare. He didn't do that. Now, I suspect they'll find him guilty because they are representative of the establishment, the Westminster establishment. There will be another by-election and then he'll win again. Now, the Tories all lining up this morning like parrots. Oh, it's a £5 million, £5 million, £5 million. Yeah. They are turning this into a tired old issue. I suspect it's going to backfire on them and people will cease to care about this £5 million.
I mean, Christopher Harborne gave a similar amount to Boris Johnson as well in donation, so the Tories can't really go and say that. I mean, it's pretty much a mirrored issue, but you are completely right. You know, the Standards Commissioner, Daniel Greenberg, is massively secretive. He does not speak to journalists. He's the one who'll be handling the entire
That's probably
Farage.
for the best.
Yeah. He'll be handling the Farage investigation, but it is really like a black box now. We actually won't know kind of even a timeline of when we're going to get some sort of answer as to whether Nigel Farage is guilty or not. We do know, though, that Farage probably will be interviewed. They'll be having to go through all of his bank statements, have a look at all of those transactions. We also know that posh George Cottrell, convicted fraudster, has also been brought into it. So the kind of issue here is that it doesn't really change anything.
No, it won't. It won't, because he's got.
We're back at square one, Kev.
I'm certain he'll be found guilty because it's all part of a campaign. Then there'll be another by-election which he'll win, and then we're back to square one. Big deal. The people of Britain deserve better. I'm not blaming Reform or Farage. He needed to do something, but the people of Britain deserve better than this. But you were up there today speaking to the locals. Let's hear from a Farage voter that you chatted to earlier in Clacton.
So you voted for Nigel?
Done a lot for Clacton. There's too many derelict buildings that should be done up for young people, to give young people somewhere to live. He hasn't done any of that. So he hasn't done a lot for Clacton, but he is the answer for the country, because I think he's the only person who says things as they are. It's as simple as that.
And the £5 million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election, is that an issue for you?
No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get, and so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for his security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with £5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it, and I'll go along with that. Don't.
Yeah, well, it is. Let's just give you a few of the facts. So he won Clacton by 63.3%, 63.3% landslide. Count Binface was second with 26.8%. About 43% of the residents turned out to vote, so it wasn't a bad turnout. Farage got 22,239 votes, so he absolutely stormed it.
I think,
you know, and he will storm it again. But we're going to go around the houses again, and you think, well, what on earth is this all about?
I think we do need to talk about the fact that kind of while I was on the train coming back, I was reading every sort of article that had been penned about this. What what's Westminster going to think? Farage is a joke to Westminster, Westminster, blah, blah, blah. The problem is there's a massive divide from what I can see coming up from Clacton between how the people feel about the state of politics and reform and how Westminster feels. And I think that's very important to note, because that guy that I spoke to was pretty much exactly what every other...
He was a representative
totally representative of the reform voter. None of them care about the 5 million. None of them even really care about the state of Clacton. A lot of them care about how much trust they put in Farage and how they believe that he is the man to save the country. And that's really interesting. They also totally feel disenfranchised and dismissed by the Westminster classes, and actually do believe that it's an establishment stitch-up, and that with their vote they are giving a two-fingered salute to the establishment to say, no, this is the guy we choose and this is how we want the country to be run. So there is really two camps out of this, and I think it's important to note that.
If you listen to the other party, to the Labour lot, the Tories and the Lib Dems, you know, they really think they've got him on the hook for this 5 million quid. It's all they talk about. The trouble is, the more it is at the centre of his ongoing dramas. You know, today, the whole business of this by-election, now the parliamentary inquiry, the possibility of another election, the more it becomes basically a tired old issue. And Reform UK will be able, already are sort of saying, look, he took this, he's got this 5 million quid, get used to it. Do you want to vote for us or not? You know, it's as simple as that. So I think I've got a feeling that, you know, all these parrots from the Tories and the Labour and Lib Dems who lined up this morning to say, oh, don't forget the £5 million. No, we haven't forgotten the £5 million. I think this is going to backfire on them. I think they're, by constant repetition, they're turning it into less and less of a crucial issue.
Yeah, absolutely. They're focusing on the wrong things. They should be focusing on Zia Youssef, who's become a massive liability for reform in the past couple of weeks. They should be focusing on the one issue of the stop the boats that Reform tries to focus on, and not all the other things. You know, there are other things to go at if you're an oppositional party, and they're just not taking it because, I don't know, they're lazy, and they also think that people actually do care about this 5 million. But I think it is somewhat of an artificial bubble for Reform. When you look at how they're polling nationally, they are down, but not as much as I think all the Tories and the Labour people think that they would be after this sort of scandal, so to speak. So I think they will brave the storm. Farage went over to America during this by-election period. He, I believe, allegedly spent a bit of time with Trump, and that is the political comeback king of the century. And so he probably did get a couple of tips from the Trump playbook as to how to do this.
Well, given that Andy Burnham has made it very, very clear that not only does he have no idea how to stop the boats, he doesn't have any really real inclination to stop the boats, doesn't really want to stop them. If Reform UK keep banging that drum, that'll be a stark offer to the British people. Do you want to stop the boats or don't you? Because none of the other parties are going to do it. We will. That could be very, very powerful. And from now on, I think the Farage will be able to say, look, you know, 5 million quid, I took it to the people of Clacton. If you want me to take it to the people of Clacton again, I will. I will still emerge victorious. Get used to the 5 million quid and vote for me, and I'll stop the boats. I think you'll find that the mainstream parties may suffer because of that. Samara, great to have you in the studio. I'm glad you enjoyed the lovely seaside town of Clacton. Saw you paddling in the sea there.
Yeah, it was rough.
With all the windmills in the background, the eco windmills. We'll be dealing with Andy Burnham's pledge for more clean energy later in the show. Even more worrying from our increasingly unimpressive Prime Minister. Next up, we're going to go back to the issue of the 5 million quid. I want to ask why Reform ever thought that going to the people of Clacton would somehow quash the parliamentary inquiry. A lot of people in Reform, I'm not saying Farage or any of that lot, but some of the lower orders in Reform seem to think that if Farage won the Clacton by-election, which indeed he has, that somehow or other the parliamentary investigation into his 5 million quid bung would disappear. That was a very wrong attitude to take, as we've learned. So in the end, you know, I just feel there's a sort of sense of nothingness about all of this, don't you? Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Big thanks to Samara Gill. We'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
£5 million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election, is that an issue for you?
No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get, and so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to political commentator Benedict Spence. Welcome, Benedict.
Good afternoon, Kevin. How are you?
I'm okay. I know for a fact there are people within Reform's echelons, and I'm not talking about the top people, but some of the people lower down, were labouring under the misimpression that if Nigel Farage was triumphant in this by-election, because he'd gone to the people of Clacton and said, look, the parliamentary squad are after me because of this £5 million bung. Some Reform people felt, well, if he goes to the people of Clacton and then they vote him back in, then there goes the parliamentary investigation. That'll be off. I don't quite know how on earth they ever got that into their heads. I mean, I thought that the Parliamentary Standards Office moved with indecent haste this morning. I mean, it was about 30 seconds after it was confirmed he'd won. They announced, yeah, right, he's back, the investigation is back on. That notwithstanding, that was always inevitable. So in the end, I mean, I sort of get what Farage was up to. The Farage, you know, the establishment was trying to stick it to him, so he'd stuck it back to them, and in that respect he was triumphant. Yeah. But there was no way it was ever going to snuff out this investigation, right?
No, there was no chance of that happening. It's a curious thing, actually, this by-election, because on the one hand, I think it has helped Nigel Farage, although not for the reasons that he might necessarily have imagined or hoped for. And it's certainly not, you know, there were external events as well, I think, that have ended up playing, you know, it might not sound nice to say played into his favour, but have certainly helped him along the way. We need to remember, of course, at the very start of all of this, Farage was claiming that he'd taken some of this money, at the very least, for security purposes. purposes to pay for his own personal security. I think a lot of people had a lot of sympathy for that. It was only after he started to sort of change his tune on this and say, well, actually, it doesn't necessarily mean that it had to be for my personal security. It's my business what I do with this. It was before an MP. It's none of your business. I can buy a Ferrari with it if I want. At that point, it suddenly started to become a little bit gritty, I think, for a lot of people. And they were sat there thinking, well, actually, I'm not so sure that I do like the sound of this. And it was a mistake, ultimately, for him to change tack on this. Then when he did call the by-election, again, we understood why. He was trying to sort of call the bluff of the establishment. He was, I think, probably kind of wrong-footed by all of the other political parties deciding not to stand in the by-election, which on the one hand, of course, they were all saying, well, this is because we know that the investigation is going to sort of restart once it's all done, and we're then all going to stand in that one, which did make him look like a bit of a fool. But at the same time, I actually think that the outcome of this by-election, whereby he has increased his vote share, whereas many people, when they knew that the joke candidate Count Binface was going to stand, many people suddenly, I think, jumped on the slightly gleeful bandwagon and were going, oh, well, we can just pour all of our votes into this guy, and you'll have Labour voters and Tory voters and Lib Dem voters and Green voters, and they can all vote for this guy, and we might actually give him a bloody nose. We might actually give him a run for his money. And you saw that actually reflected in the fact that Count Binface was given a disproportionate amount of airtime on things like the BBC. I mean, he was on Newsnight, for heaven's sake. And I think for
they pretty much gave him a show on LBC.
They absolutely did. And yet somehow this has failed resolutely to impact him. He's increased his vote share. And I think a lot of that, very sadly, is down to the death of Anne Widdecombe. And actually, this is why it proves that Farage probably was right, or should have stuck to his guns about the security issue. Because the security threat to a lot of Reform characters is very real. It was demonstrated by this absolute tragedy, this appalling evil event that's happened, proved it. And of course, Nigel Farage was not to know that this would happen. None of us were to know, and none of us would have dreamed to think that this awful thing would have happened. But I think ultimately that has what has probably, I think, dampened down a lot of the hysteria around Camp Binface and everything else to do with it. A lot of people clearly, I think, understand that there is a threat posed to Reform figures. And even though this standards inquiry will continue, and there's a chance that he may be convicted, well, found to have broken the rules, he may face a recall, we don't know. I actually think the fact that his share of the vote went up in Clacton is a sign that actually, even if there were to be another by-election, and even if all the other parties were to stand again, I don't think they would unseat him. I think there's actually a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I'm pretty convinced that the Parliamentary Standards Committee will find him guilty and will probably, almost certainly, suspend him long enough to trigger another by-election, which I think he, again, will win comfortably. And that could prove very embarrassing for the mainstream parties because they've all committed to standing in that by-election. So if he wins that one, he wins the day, he wins the war. And I'm just thinking, I was listening to Talk and other stations actually this morning, and it was a veritable sort of production line, particularly of Tory MPs and shadow cabinet ministers. Also, obviously the Lib Dem crowd, Labour, just like parroting this thing. Drowning in sleaze, £5 million, sleaze, £5 million, sleaze, £5 million. They think they've got him, but the more it's talked about, the more old it becomes, the more threadbare it becomes, and he keeps beating them at their own game, saying, OK, I'll take it to the electorate. Next time he might be forced to take it to the electorate. So the £5 million issue is sort of systematically reduced, becomes less of an issue the more they all drone on about it.
Yeah, exactly. And also the more that if he does return to the issue of security of his own MPs and his own party members and himself, ultimately I think that will continue to play well with people, because now they have living proof that this is a genuine threat to lots of MPs, especially to Reform MPs at the moment. And, this is also, it must be said, I think it neutered a lot of the attack lines that we've seen from the Tories and from the Lib Dems and from Labour. Suddenly a lot of the nastiness that you saw before poor Anne Widdecombe's death because there was a lot of it, it really sort of tampered back a bit, and there wasn't so much of it. And I think you could understand and you could see a lot of them were sitting there going, actually, no, we can't go down this line because it'll end up hurting us. We have all said we're not going to stand in this by-election, which is to say that we're not taking the democratic process entirely seriously. We've all completely shot down his arguments about personal safety. That's proven not to be true. How do we actually attack him on this? And you're right, now they're going on and on about sleaze, about sleaze, about sleaze. But honestly, I don't think that's actually going to be the thing that swings a lot of people away from this. A lot of people understood Nigel Farage was, he's a former businessman, and ultimately, he's made no secret of the fact that in the past he wanted to make money, which is completely fine for a lot of people if he's also promising to make your financial situation slightly better. It's the same thing that happened with Donald Trump. It's the same thing that happened with Silvio Berlusconi. If you have a sort of a larger-than-life character and they come forward and they go, I'm not a saint, but I'm promising to make your life better as I'm promising to make my life better, that tends to play a lot better than the sort of the sour-faced harridans who have put you in financial distress, sitting there going, oh, well, you can't possibly vote for him because he's an awful man. And just look at all the things that he'll do. And you're then sat there going, the things he'll do. Well, he'll do things.
Absolutely. The thing is, Benedict, that with sleaze and these kind of accusations, before too long, if they are to work, before too long, they have to have an effect. So the more it bounces off Teflon Farage, this £5 million issue, the less effective the attacks on him are. So, in other words, you've got the £5 million sleaze, yes, he's broken the rules, he'll have to go. Well, then he doesn't go. Then he wins this by-election. Then he wins the next by-election, and the people will just get bored with it. I think they already are getting bored with it. And I think probably the lowest point in the opposition to Farage during this recent campaign was Kemi Badenoch, who I believe it's now the law, you have to say, is absolutely brilliant, magnificent, fantastic, is doing a brilliant job leading the Tories. Well, she wrote this big article and sort of recorded a video to the people of Clacton during the middle of this recent campaign, saying that you, the people of Clacton, deserve better than Nigel Farage. Well, Kemi, shut the hell up, because you didn't put a candidate up. So there's something impotent and incoherent about the mainstream party's opposition to Reform Britain and Nigel Farage in all of this.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who does think that Kemi Badenoch is doing a decent job, but I do think it's an unfortunate pattern that seems to be emerging, which is that the Tories don't put candidates up or don't seem to do very well or try in areas that Reform are doing well, and then they turn around and go, well, why would we bother to try in areas that Reform are going to do well? And then you sat there going, well, at some point you're going to have to try and beat people. You can't just sort of sit there and go, oh, well, this was a hopeless race anyway. At that point, you've got to then say, so what are you for again? But one thing that I would say about all of this is this period has been characterized by a lot of, I must say, a lot of backstabbing and wailing and sniping from all the parties on the right, actually. And I am not about to come out and say, oh, the right needs to unite, because it's not going to happen. Let's be very clear about that.
Yep.
What I do think is that Reform has had its momentum checked in the last couple of months. If it wishes to continue to succeed and push on, it does need to put this behind it. It needs to stop wailing and being very negative and talking about attacks by the press or the establishment, and it needs to get back out onto the front foot. It needs to be positive. It needs to be optimistic.
I agree.
It cannot engage in tit for tat with Rupert Lowe and his party. It can't listen to the Tories who, as you say, aren't putting candidates up against them or trying. This is the moment to regain that momentum. If they don't, I'm sorry, but they're not going to break above that barrier again, and they will have a really difficult time on their hands.
I think that they may turn things around now. I think the picture might change. You're absolutely right, though. The victimhood narrative that Reform is now surrounding itself with is getting a little tiresome. It really is. It's not what you kind of expect of Reform. That is in no way to undermine the awfulness, the tragedy of Anne Widdecombe. But all this kind of, we're all in trouble and reporting everyone to the police, I think people are a bit sick of it. They need to raise their game, but I think this might be the moment. Benedict, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. That's Benedict Spence there, political commentator. Next up, we're going to talk about a joke, a kind of a joke that Tory grandee Edwina Currie made yesterday on Times Radio, our sister station. She said all these massive rural migrant camps that are being proposed, they're going to need local brothels to service these men. Ho, ho, ho. But if you think about it, That's not that funny. There's something serious about that. 1,500 young men plonked right in the middle of a village. I think that is a serious women's safety issue. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm going to introduce my next guest right away. She is the National Policing Lead Women's Right Network Chief, retired South Wales Police Superintendent, Cathy Larkman. Welcome to the show, Cathy.
Hello, welcome. Thanks, Kev.
Always good to have you on the show. Now, I'm going to play you now a video of Edwina Currie speaking to our sister station Times Radio yesterday. It speaks for itself, so let's watch this.
I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to be allowed to say this. You're probably going to shut me up in no time at all. But the obvious thing that 1,200 young men are going to need in the middle of a village like Little Piddington is a brothel. I don't think they're going to provide that. I have a feeling that's not going to be allowed. So, you know, the argument is going to be who stops this? Who's got a veto? And in the end, we should say, look, nobody's got a veto. If something is going to happen in the public interest, whether it's a prison, whether it's an asylum centre, we're going to have to do it.
Now, Cathy, you know, she's said that almost as a joke, but there's something very serious there, and that is, she's right. I mean, there's a place called Linton on Ouse up in Yorkshire, where there is a proposed massive migrant camp, which will house 1,500 young men, young foreign men. Now, of course, they're not going to set up local brothels, but, you know, those are young men of sexually active age. They have needs, and this is, I would suggest, a very serious women's safety issue.
Yes, Kev. I mean, there are many things that I can say about this. Let me start, though, by saying that in all this discussion about the needs of those men, can we reflect a little bit on the needs of the women who are actually working in those brothels? The women who work in brothels and who work in the sex trade, prostituted women, are in the main extremely vulnerable. A large proportion will have spent time in the care environment as well. Where is the thought for those women? Why is there an expectation that they be served up as female bodies for the needs of males in any event? I just think it's entirely wrong, and I'd like a little bit of thought to those women.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. But I think, in fairness to Edwina Currie, she wasn't being entirely serious, but she's alluding to a very serious issue. You know, these thousands of sexually active, frankly, they're at a sexually rampant kind of age, most of these male migrants are going to be stuck right into the middle of quite a few rural communities with little villages around them. And, you know, the truth is, of course, that we're not going to set up brothels for them. But, you know, that they are going to represent clearly a huge threat to women's safety in those areas. And this does not seem to have been an issue that's been discussed among all the objections to having these huge reasons to object to these huge migrant camps. Women's safety, the safety of women in the local area has not been discussed, and it's a very, very important issue that we should discuss, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely, and women's safety is paramount here. What I think Edwina has said the quiet part out loud there, an acknowledgement that there are going to be men who have no respect, potentially, for women's right to choose, women's consent and women's own autonomy as human beings themselves. And those women are going to be put at risk. But the main issue I have here in Edwina's suggestion, whether it's serious or not, it should certainly be taken seriously because of what she said, is that we're basically offering up a sacrificial caste of women to service those men. And the message as well to men coming over in large numbers is that, they're entitled to food, they're entitled to accommodation, and they're entitled to female bodies. That's entirely wrong. Men have self-control, men have restraint, men possess free will as well, and I actually think it's really insulting to men generally if there's an acknowledgement that these particular men are going to be so sexually voracious that they have no respect for the females within that area. Then the solution is not offering up a vulnerable class of sacrificial, vulnerable women to service their needs.
No, but we need to think about this, though. I mean, this is one issue that hasn't been discussed. And just plonking these massive migrant camps, we're talking about camps for 1,250 for Piddington in Oxfordshire, 1,500 for Linton on Ouse in Yorkshire. We've already got about 1,300 in the Wethersfield camp in Essex. And I know for a fact, because I've interviewed quite a few of them, women in the local area around Wethersfield, it's a former disused airbase, RAF airbase, they're terrified. And also they're not letting their kids out. So none of the actual effect on the local communities, particularly women and children, is almost a side issue that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, and that's dreadful. I couldn't agree more with you in relation to that. The safety of local residents must be taken really, really, really seriously, and women must be listened to in those areas as well. And there has to be a serious analysis of the safety of the women in those areas. I just don't see that being made any better by offering up vulnerable women for, in effect, state-supported rape, I would argue.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's what we worry about, that there's already a rather lamentable record on the part of the asylum seekers, a disproportionate number of sex offences committed by them. Generally speaking, though, Kathy, would you agree that the best of all worlds would be stopping all of these men being allowed into the country, which requires us to find these places to put them? The ideal situation would be that we stop them coming in.
Well, whenever you carry out an action like placing a large amount of men of which you know very little in relation to their backgrounds all together in one large populous group together, there are going to be consequences. So the state really needs to think through the consequences of doing that. You've mentioned some of the consequences already, the safety of females in the area. Organising state brothels is not the solution to that. You need to deal with the problem of having large amounts of men that we know nothing about being just popped into a small area.
I agree with you there. I mean, the idea that somehow or other the state would get involved in setting up brothels for these men would be absolutely grotesque. I mean, we cannot go down that route. That said, you know what I'm saying, Kathy. 1,500 young men, as I say, they have needs, and this is going to lead to terrible situations, I fear.
Well, we all have needs, but sometimes those needs are not met, are they? Whether they're these men's needs for sexual services or anything else, and we have to learn that we can't have everything in life when we want it on demand. The same applies to these men anyway. And, I'm certainly concerned that this happens really with an argument very often from the left that sex work is work, that prostitution is work. I don't notice any of those politicians offering this up as a career option for their own daughters or putting it forward as a serious sort of career option for themselves. Perhaps they should.
Yeah, as soon as they started calling them sex workers, it was an attempt to euphemise the actual profession of prostitution, which is very rarely something that women say, oh, I know what I'd like to do with my life. I'd like to sell my body. That would be a lovely career. You're quite right. The left often try to depict it like that, which is frankly absurd. Cathy, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Cathy Larkman there, National Policing Lead on Women's Rights, the Women's Rights Network. She's retired South Wales Police Superintendent. Let me know what you think about that. As I say, I think in the real world, there's not going to be brothels set up for these young men. 1,500 of them in the middle of Linton-on-Ouse, for example. So what are they going to do? What's going to happen? 1,500 young men. I'm sure the vast majority of them would be decent young men who wouldn't dream of raping women. Some of them, though, maybe not so much. There's going to be a massive problem here, isn't there? Let me know. 03444991000. Next up, still with the migrant crisis. Vodafone, the phone company, has been handing out SIM cards to charities, including Care for Calais. And the Care for Calais in northern France has been handing these SIM cards to migrants, to illegal migrants. More than 2,000, about 2,500. You know, this is a bit strange, isn't it? What do they use these phones for then? To organise crossing the channel illegally and breaking into Britain illegally. So Vodafone indirectly are supplying SIM cards to migrants to use for criminal purposes. What is going on here? 03444991000. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
£1 million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election. Is that an issue for you?
No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get, and so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. By the way, in terms of those massive migrant camps that are proposed all over the country, Andy Burnham and his government are facing legal action by local Tory and Reform UK councils who are vowing to set up or to demand judicial review. So if Burnham thinks these camps are just going to start despite the opposition of local residents, I think he's got another thing coming. I've got Sarah Pochin on at 5 p.m. from Reform UK. Obviously, we'll talk about Farage, but I'll ask her about that as well. Meanwhile, other breaking news. Luigi Mangione, you remember that guy who shot the healthcare boss over in New York, Brian Thompson. Luigi Mangione has just pleaded guilty to federal charges in connection with that fatal shooting. Brian Thompson, 50-year-old father of two, was shot in the back as he left his hotel in New York in 2024. The judge has set the sentencing date for Luigi Mangione, the shooter, for December the 18th. That is breaking news. Right, let's get back to our agenda and welcome to the show the co-founder of the Together Declaration, Alan Miller. Welcome, Alan.
Hello there. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, mate. Now, Zia Youssef is particularly furious about this. I can see where he's coming from. Vodafone, the big phone company, has been handing SIM cards for mobile phones to charities, including Care for Calais, the British charity that goes around helping migrants gathering on the north coast of France to make the voyage to the Promised Land, the illegal voyage. Now, so they've given these SIM cards to Care for Calais. The 2,500 SIM cards have then been distributed among illegal migrants in North France. Now, this strikes me as extremely worrying because what are the, we've got a big company there, we've got a British charity handing SIM cards and phones to people who intend to break British laws. What is that all about?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, some of it's a bit unclear. The charity and Vodafone are claiming that none of it is being distributed. None of the SIMs have been distributed in France, only in the British borders.
Yeah, they are. Care for Calais. Care for Calais' annual report shows that they distributed the majority of the SIM cards to occupants of the Wethersfield migrant camp in Essex, the biggest migrant camp in Britain.
But I think what the bigger question within all of this is, why is it that people that are basically breaking into our country, given so many things, Vodafone is using the argument to prevent digital exclusion. I mean, we've got a whole issue going on around the digital arena right now with digital privacy and rights, but they are not citizens. And we have a situation that and alongside charities and activist lawyers who are consistently working against the interests of those who've said that they want to protect borders and sovereignty, where it becomes remarkably difficult to deal with the issue at hand. So I think what Zia Youssef is saying and doing is that, there will be repercussions for people who are basically offering incentives. And if it can be demonstrated that they are actually doing that in France and offering incentives, that will be penalised. And I think that the British public, actually, Kevin, is fed up and furious with the situation we find. I mean, Andy Burnham wants to have a Cobra meeting about the temperature and ban barbecues. You can't make it up. When the big issue of the day is that there are dinghies with 230 people on them coming across the shores, and it seems to be endless. We still provide loads of benefits and incentives. We provide all sorts of things, not just phones, it seems like just accommodation, but money and bicycles, a whole array of different things. We see that there's lots of crime, concerns from locals, contempt for the public when they raise these issues. And it's quite breathtaking. So I think that, Reform has said, and Zia Youssef has said, that there are going to be very different measures if Reform become a government. We know that Nigel Farage has just got back into Clacton. We'll see what happens with that as we go. And as you say, councils are taking positions on this, because when Andy Burnham says everybody has to share, this is his idea of equity and equality, of course, everybody has to share, do their share in terms of taking these migrants. Well, people in Britain don't all want to do this share. We're very welcoming and tolerant, but we're not mugs.
We don't have I'm glad you brought that up. We should stress that, as you quite rightly say, Alan, that Zia Yousaf of Reform UK is saying that these cards have been handed out, these SIM cards have been handed out in northern France. Both Care for Calais and Vodafone have denied this. But I think what people would be annoyed about is they are handing them out willy-nilly to migrants or asylum seekers in Britain. And I think it feeds into this very justified picture that when these people break into our country illegally, we immediately start treating them like honoured guests. Here, have a free phone. Oh, you're staying in our free accommodation. We're giving you free food, free 50 quid a week benefits. We're giving you free doctors, free dentists, and here's some free phones. People are sick of this, aren't they?
We've got a cost of living crisis. We've seen a situation where people are finding it hard to make ends meet. We've been taxed through the wazoo, national insurance rates up, businesses being pressurised, loads of entrepreneurs often leaving the country. And yet it seems to be free reign if you break into the country illegally. You know, it's quite understandable that people are very upset. It's not just a concern, although it's a very legitimate concern, if you've got families and if you're in a place like Piddington and you're going to have 1,200 men come into that area and there's only a few hundred of you and you've got playgrounds and other things. And we've seen daily across Britain videos and images of all sorts of dreadful things and terrible behaviour and lots of crime. But it's also the case that just aside from that, but that's a big enough problem in and of itself, and the fact that we got 50,000 people on a terror watch list and a lot of people, and they don't know where many of these people are. But on top of all of that, the very notion that people are working really hard, trying to do extra work to make ends meet, and then we've got a situation where you can just come in, be given accommodation next to people who are struggling, and be given all of these things. And there's a pipeline. I'm currently in Croatia, and the part of Croatia I'm in, on the Dalmatian coast, not far from Vodica, there aren't any illegal migrants here. And it is absolutely remarkable. It's because it's not part of the main path. They're a bit further up by Slovenia. But I cannot tell you the difference, right? Now, they make a lot of money from tourism, but the whole vibe is completely different, right? Yeah. It's a completely different situation, and it's remarkable when you actually compare it to what's happening in some of our cities in Britain. And Andy Burnham is going to get a big shock if he thinks the solution is to force
it's just not. He is going to get a big shock on this middle-class claptrap. It's an outrage. Alan, I've got to go now, but really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Now, I've got to let you know, a Vodafone spokesman told us Vodafone 3's programme provides mobile SIMs to registered UK charities against strict programme criteria for distribution to vulnerable people in the UK. Participating charities regulated by the Charity Commission distribute the 6 months connectivity to those they identify as being in need. All calls, texts and data are for UK use only. A Care for Calais spokesman, Care for Calais does not hand out SIM cards in France, as his recent spate of social media posts have suggested. That was, of course, a reference to Zia Yousaf. So both organisations denying they're handing out SIM cards in northern France. That's it. We're going to break now. Sarah Poshin after the news. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we'll talk about Andy Burnham's drearily inevitable statement that we have to face up to the changing climate and we need to carry on transitioning to more clean energy. So Crazy Ed Miliband may no longer be Net Zero Secretary, but his insanity lingers on. When are these politicians, the Labour politicians, going to work out that their sustainable energy mania is not sustainable, will never be powered just by windmills and solar panels? It's not possible. And yet we're told to agree with them, with their fantasy politics. It's unbelievable. And now the Prime Minister's joined in with a dreary inevitability. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, let's go over to Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby, Sarah Poshin. Welcome, Sarah.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. Should I say congratulations to your party? I do think this is a very great day for Nigel Farage, a good day for the party, but I fear that this ongoing saga is not over yet. It was, I said earlier, did you agree with me that the Parliamentary Standards Office announcement that Nigel having now been confirmed to have won in Clacton, the by-election there, they made this announcement, right, well, the investigation into the £5 million is back on. Do you agree with me that they made that announcement with indecent haste?
Well, look, we know, don't we, that they're coming at reform from every angle, whether it's the Uniparty by refusing to stand in this by-election and denying the voters of Clacton a Labour candidate or a Conservative candidate to vote for if they'd have wanted to. So they tried that, and here we are with a resounding victory for Nigel in Clacton. He got 22,000 votes, 1,000 votes more than he did in 2024. So a resounding vote of support by the people of Clacton for Nigel. And of course, they're trying to rain on our parade again. But, the people, they don't buy it. Everyone, listen, Clacton, I've just got back from 3 or 4 days down there this week. It was like a Farage festival. And of course, we had Farage Fest last night.
What do you call it now? Clactonberry, right? Clactonberry.
Yeah, the Clactonberry, that's right. But, at the end of the day, Reform have got the people behind us, whether it's in Clacton or whether it's up and down the country. And the establishment, they just don't like it, do they? I actually look at things, I think they look at things like Farage Fest or Clactonberry, whatever you want to call it, and think, there they are again. Reform have done it again. They're having such fun.
So this is what I think is going to happen, Sarah. The Parliamentary Standards Committee, if I'm any judge, will find Nigel guilty. They will suspend him for long enough to trigger another by-election in Clacton, which Nigel will comprehensively win. This time, the mainstream parties will have to field candidates because they've already pledged to do it. When he wins that, he'll be able to turn around to the country and say, look, or turn round to the Westminster establishment and say, look, everybody knows about the £5 million. I keep winning Clacton. Now what are you going to do? I think that they are banging this £5 million drum, the sleaze drum, so hard and so repetitively that I think people are getting bored of it.
Well, also, look, what was Nigel meant to do? It is not the place of the media or the establishment to be judge and jury. The only people that are sovereign over us politicians are our voters. They're the ones that put us into the position to represent them in Parliament. And that's what's happened. And yes, we have to wait, don't we, and see what the Standards Commission ruling is at the end of the day. day. We don't know what they're going to do. But you know what? If it does trigger another by-election, then it'll be a case of tell them again, people of Clacton, that you want Nigel Farage.
Well, they'll run out of rope at that point because, of course, they'll keep going, £5 million is terrible, ooh, sleaze. And then there'll be another by-election, which Nigel will win. This time he'll beat the Tory, the Labour and the Lib Dem candidate. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And then he'll be able to turn around and say, now what are you going to say? Because then they've run out of rope, haven't they? They can't, there's nothing else they can do.
Yeah, and in the meantime, what are Reform doing? We're coming out with big policy statements. We're working so hard behind the scenes, getting ready for government. So, look, we don't let all of this distraction and white noise that's coming constantly at us from, as I say, those that want to stop us, those that want to bring us down. We just deal with it, but it doesn't detract us or deflect us from the key role and the work that we're doing, which is so important because there's so much to do in getting this country back on track.
A lot of people criticising Nigel for not turning up to the count to make his victory speech. What's your view of that? Should he have been there?
Well, look, one of the biggest issues that Reform are dealing with, all of us, but no one more so than Nigel, is our security at the moment. The £5 million was given as a gift to help Nigel make sure that he can, and he sadly will need for the rest of his life, full-time security, that he can pay for that, because Parliament don't pay for it for Nigel. I think they should, but they don't. That's another story.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But look, there was a concern about Nigel going to the count. I can't comment because that sort of information is not something that would be shared with us.
Essex Police, Sarah, did say that Nigel said that Essex Police have warned him there may be a credible threat to his safety. Essex Police said that they had not made that warning.
I would imagine...
I've got to say...
I would imagine what happened. Sorry. I'm just going to say I would... Go on.
Well, I was just going to say, Nigel's story did seem to fluctuate a bit because at first he said, well, there's this credible threat to my safety, and Essex Police said that. And then he said, there was no way I was going to go there and humiliate myself standing among 33 weirdos. Now, I think my personal feeling is he should have just said, I wasn't going to go there and stand next to Count Bimface. I don't have to go, and to hell with you. I'm going to have a party elsewhere. So the Essex Police line didn't seem to work out.
I don't know. Look, the thing is, he's got his own extremely competent security team. If there was any concern at all, then they would have said no. I've been places where Nigel has been expected and at the last minute has been diverted away because of intel that they've had. That's their job.
Yes,
so
yeah.
I can't comment on that. But the fact is, we did have an amazing party last night, and we did celebrate the fact that Reform will not be stopped by all of this nonsense. So yes, we have to wait for the Standards Committee. Yes, Nigel didn't go to the count for very good reason, in my opinion, but Reform just ploughs through, carries on, representing the hopes of the nation. And you know what? Bring on a general election.
I was personally pleased to see Nigel thrash the establishment candidate, the BBC comedy writer, went to Oxford University, Count Bimface, who thinks he's funny. I've got bad news for him. He isn't. But are you, as a prominent Reform UK MP, the security issue, I mean, are you frightened?
No, I do have security now. We all do. But no, I will not be intimidated. I mean, as you know, I speak a lot about some issues that do draw attention. I speak against the transgender activists that brainwash our children in schools and try and experiment on them with puberty-blocking drugs. I talk about the suppression of women through things like Sharia law courts. I talk about a lot of things that potentially makes me a target, but no, Kevin, we must not be silenced. I will always speak out for the safety and equality of women in this country.
Well, listen, I want to move on to that now. What I want to discuss with you, if it's all right with you, Sarah, is a very serious women's safety issue, which I think is evolving worryingly. And it's this. These proposals for these massive migrant camps to be plonked in the middle of rural communities, middle-class communities, like Piddington in Oxfordshire, Linton-on-Ouse in Yorkshire. Those poor people, the RAF base there is right in the middle of the village. 1,500 young male migrants are proposed to be moved into there. Now, you probably saw this, but I'll play it to you anyway. Edwina Currie, a Tory grandee, went on to our sister station, Times Radio, yesterday, and said this. It's a sort of a joke about having to supply brothels for these men, but there's a serious issue. But let's have a look at what Edwina said.
I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to be allowed to say this. You're probably going to shut me up in no time at all. But the obvious thing that 1,200 young men are going to need in the middle of a village like Little Piddington is a brothel. I don't think they're going to provide that. I have a feeling that's not going to be allowed. So, you know, the argument is going to be who stops this? Who's got a veto? And in the end, we should say, look, nobody's got a veto. If something is going to happen in the public interest, whether it's a prison, whether it's an asylum centre, we're going to have to do it.
Now, Sarah, Zia Youssef, your Reform UK colleague, shadow Home Office spokesman, I think, said this. This former Tory minister, as in Edwina Currie, joking about brothels being made available to the military-aged men they allowed to break into Britain illegally, just sick. Never forget what the Tories did to this country. Do you agree with those sentiments?
What I'm most concerned about is the safety of women and girls in this country and in places where they are literally going to plonk, whether it's 1,200 or 1,500 young, sexually active men who have a very, very different attitude towards women than men in this country. They have a medieval attitude towards women. And I know, do you know what? It doesn't matter whether you're talking about HMOs in Runcorn, where I represent, with maybe 8 young male illegal immigrants in them, or whether you're talking about an army base with 1,500. The fact is that women now in this country are threatened, are potentially targets for some of these men coming across illegally on these boats. We know it. It's a fact that there's nothing that I've said there that is not evidenced and can be factually proven, and we are a target. This is a betrayal by this government and by the last Tory government of the safety of women and children in this country. I have examples, even in Runcorn, where we don't have an army base with 1,500 on, where they sit outside schools, they video children, they follow children and young girls in local parks. Parents can't let their children play out on the streets in these summer holidays in this hot weather, unsupervised. What is happening in our communities?
Yeah, this is what I was. I've played videos myself of scenes to the west of London near Heathrow Airport where just that was happening. All these migrants from a local migrant hotel spending the day outside a local school, terrifying the kids and the parents. So you're right about this. Now, to be fair to Edwina Currie, I think she was sort of slightly joking. She said, well, if you've got 1,500 men, you're going to have a local brothel. Well, obviously, that's a ludicrous suggestion. That we're not going to set up brothels for these guys, but it does allude to a serious problem. If you put 1,500 young men, as you say, Sarah, of sexually active age, in the middle of a rural community, the threat to women's safety and children will be massive. This is not an issue that Andy Burnham and his gang seem to have talked about when they're saying, oh, we've got to start plonking migrants in the middle of middle-class communities. Well, these communities are out in the country, and these young men in the middle of them, they're going to be a long way from town. This really is very frightening. Women's safety issue is serious here, isn't it?
It's massive. And look, Andy Burnham has made it very clear that he does not prioritise the safety of women in this country. He's all for open borders. He's not enacting insisting that the Supreme Court ruling on female safe spaces is enacted across the country, across all institutions. That is a betrayal of women in itself. And here we are discussing what we're discussing, while the reform policy is that these young men do not stay in this country. They are deported out of this country, whether that is back home or whether it is to a third location whilst they are then processed. The point is they will never, ever get housed in communities like this. And do you know what, by the way, it doesn't matter whether, just because it's middle England or middle class,
doesn't
matter. The safety of women, it doesn't matter where you are, whether you are in a deprived area, like, for example, some of the communities in Runcorn, or whether you're in, leafy Cotswolds. No women's safety should be under threat.
Still on that tack, Sarah, stories this morning emerging. The Andy Burnham, King Andy, a man for whom democracy doesn't seem to be a priority, he's our unelected ruler. He seems to think it's going to be very easy for him to just say, I ordain that there will be a massive migrant camp here, mainly because the people who live locally are middle class. Well, it sounds as if, or it emerges that reform councils and Tory councils all over the country are going to launch extremely serious legal challenges to these proposals, and they're going to call for judicial reviews. So it seems to me that if reform councils and Tory councils get their act together, if nothing else, they'll be able to delay these horrible, massive migrant camps, maybe for years.
But look, it's more fueling the industry that is the human rights lawyers, that they're the ones that are benefiting the most out of all of this nonsense. Let's not argue in court over whether or not these camps should be set up in these various locations. The fact is, they shouldn't be set up at all. I'd much rather see us arguing in the courts about, why we've deported them out of this country. Let's do what other countries do. Let's get them out of this country and then argue about it. They should not be allowed to set foot in this country and threaten, like, as I say, women and girls. And you know what, Andy Burnham going around the country on his little tour asking, how he could help improve lives. Well, let's start with the basics. Andy, why don't you secure our borders? Because a country whose borders are not secure is not sovereign.
Yeah, do you know what it reveals when he says, right, I'm going to start plonking these migrant camps on middle-class communities? That reveals he has no plans whatsoever to stop the boats. He just wants plans to distribute these asylum seekers, these young men who break into our country illegally, thousands and thousands of them, all over the country. That's his plan. His game plan is just to accommodate the increasing number of young foreign men who break into the country illegally. The lack of ambition in that, I think, could be electorally dangerous for Mr. Burnham.
It's the single biggest issue that comes up on the doorstep, and it doesn't matter how much the left-wing Liberal brigade tell us that that's nonsense. Well, if you knocked on the thousands of doors that I knock on, whether it's Clacton or Makerfield or Gorton or Runcorn, I'm telling everybody, and we know it, the British people know it, it's the number one issue because it's impacting everything else, whether it is the availability of housing to local British people on housing lists, whether it is the money in people's pockets because of the taxes we're paying now to support these illegal immigrants. Every single aspect of our lives is being impacted by this invasion of illegal immigrants. The country cannot cope, the infrastructure cannot cope, and the British people cannot stomach any more.
Couldn't agree with you more, Sarah. It's great to have her on the show again. Come on again soon. The brilliant Sarah Pochin, Reform UK MP there. Next up, as I said earlier, with the dreary inevitability, Andy Burnham has looked at all the wildfires and said, right, we need to double down on clean energy policies, even though they are impractical, incoherent and won't work. We will talk about that next. Stay tuned.
million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election. Is that an issue for you?
No. No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get. And so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for his security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, every summer we get wildfires and never do the climate change emergency crowd miss the opportunity to say, Britain's on fire, we're going to change our net zero, we're going to totally green, no more oil, no more petrol. Say it every single year. They're doing it again, but guess who's joined in this annual summer chorus? Inevitably, yes, it's our supreme unelected leader, Andy Burnham. Here he is.
Obviously, there's other adjustments that we need to make in relation to climate change. We might be in for a wet autumn and winter straight after this because of El Nino and some of the issues there, which was reported to Cobra. So after fire could come floods. So, you know, we have to face up to the changing climate. And I think we need a different debate about that. There's no point denying where we are. We need to face up to it. We need more clean energy. We need to see that transition accelerate. Those are all of the issues that, you know, are now.
Let's talk to campaign director at Net Zero Watch, Maurice Cousins. Hi, Maurice. Well, crazy Ed Miliband may no longer be Energy Secretary, but his green claptrap mania lives on in the Prime Minister. So those policies he just proposed, more clean energy policies, they're going to hit us in the pocket, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Ed Miliband may not be there, but, you know, in a way, it wasn't really ever about personalities. You know, we have this statutory framework that's in place. So whoever's really there, it doesn't really matter. The direction remains set, and we have to sort of follow it. But yeah, we could talk. I mean, you know, Andy Burnham, I have really serious reservations with
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure what argument he's trying to make, actually, because I mean, like, look, you can accept the very general proposition that the climate is changing, and that we as a planet are contributing towards that, and that can then have localized impacts. Yeah, so just for logical purposes, let's accept that is the case. Where I have an issue is when he then takes that very general proposition and then makes the logical leap, then saying, well, we now therefore have to accept an accelerated shift towards, now he uses the term clean energy, but what he actually means by that is his luxury energy policy, which is centered around wind and solar.
Which can never amply fuel this country. It cannot power this country. So when they say, oh, we're on the road to total sustainable energy, so green energy, windmills, it's incoherent and not possible.
It's both incoherent, but also his argument falls on his own terms. Because if you are saying that the planet is warming and that it's to do with you know, that's then having localized effects, you know, what you are actually saying there is that that is a global emissions problem. Now, if Britain is only responsible for less than 1% of global emissions, I struggle to see how, if we were to accelerate towards an energy system that doesn't work by the end of 2030, how that is going to actually stop wildfires or anything else happening in Britain. We need to have a very grown-up conversation here, and that if we are going to deal with climate change, there are countries like China that need to start doing their fair share. China emits 33 times more carbon than Britain.
Yeah, 28% of the world's pollution comes from China.
Yes.
Yeah, they've got 1,100 coal-fueled power stations, and they're building 300 more. So we're sort of kind of labouring under these hair shirt policies, and over in China they couldn't give a damn.
And we need to remember that a government has a broad range of responsibilities and things that it needs to be performing in its job. They are not just elected to deal with one single issue, which is climate change or decarbonisation or whatever you want to call it. They have a range of things that they need to consider and things that they need to balance. And some of those things include things like national security and our ability to be able to defend ourselves as a country. And if we don't have the industries that like steel, like chemicals, we don't therefore have the ability to be able to produce armaments. We therefore don't have the ability to defend ourselves. Yeah. And so we need to have a much more balanced, serious conversation about the consequences of what is being proposed here, because at the moment we're not.
Call me a fundamentalist, Maurice, but since all Western nations, with the possible exception of America these days, are basing all their policies, their entire worldview around how humanity is causing climate change. I'll accept that there's a possibility mankind is contributing to the speed of climate change, possibly, but there's no actual proof that we are. There's a lot of scientists who just say anything we do won't make any difference, and yet we continue hurtling down this path on the assumption, the unproven assumption, that mankind is responsible for climate change. There's a problem there, isn't there?
Well, look, I consider myself to be a Thatcherite, and Margaret Thatcher accepted that climate change is real and that people...
Well, no, climate change is real, but are we causing it? The jury's out.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a scientific consensus on that. And
the consensus, Maurice, is not fact. There's a majority of scientists, many of whom have got their fingers in the pie, are making money out of this say-so, but there's quite a few scientists say absolute nonsense.
Yeah, all of that can be true. However, I think there is a risk of us making a mistake, which is that what is actually driving a lot of this, science tells us what is happening. It is up to politicians to determine how we respond to that. Yeah. What is actually driving this is not science. This is really important.
Exactly.
It is ideology that is driving this.
Yes.
And there is nothing in the IPCC or in any of the scientific journals that are out there that says we have to adopt luxury energy policies, that we have to be less free, and that we have to immiserate ourselves and make ourselves less secure in order to be able to tackle this issue. That is not true. It is a lie that is perpetuated by people like Ed Miliband, who want to convince you that our further and faster approach, our decarbonisation in one country strategy, is somehow necessary. It's not. The reason why the left and others have historically liked this agenda and have co-opted it is because they can see it as a very convenient pretext for smuggling in discredited left-wing ideas that Mrs. Thatcher spent her entire life defeating and bringing those back. And that's what we are up against, and that's what we're fighting. And this is not a debate about climate science or anything else. It's about how we respond. That's the
Absolutely, Maurice. And just before you go, just explain what Burnham is buying into or selling us, as Ed Miliband did, as most left-wing politicians sell us, is the idea that if we carry on, get harder and faster and harder into green energy, that in the end we will reach the sunlit uplands where Britain is entirely powered by windmills and solar power and maybe even hydropower. That is never going to be achievable. So they're selling us a fantasy, fool's gold, right?
Yes, I mean, he never really explains that. You're right. I mean, he never explains how, after we do all of this, how will we benefit in the long term? Because, you know, if countries like China and India and Brazil and others are continuing to do all of this, we could reach net zero tonight, Kevin. We could reach it tonight if we wanted to. It still isn't going to stop the so-called harms that they are referring to. When I say so-called, what I mean by that is what they are referring to.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Pressure increases on Andy Burnham and his government not to release those two scumbags who killed PC Andrew Harper. And make no mistake, the government has no credible plan right now to keep those two killers behind bars. As things stand, they're still going to get released. Now, the pressure intensified today because the petition raised by Aileen O'Connor, she's the Police Federation representative of Thames Valley Police, where PC Andrew Harper worked. That petition, which she basically launched on this show, I think it was about a week ago, has now topped the 1 million mark. It is phenomenal. It is a phenomenon. Let's talk to former DCI and the former head of National Counter-Terrorism, Chris Phillips. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, Kevin.
Good to have you on the show again. Pressure is intensifying. This petition to keep these two thugs behind bars is turning into quite a phenomenon. More than 1 million signatures and rising. And as I said, I'll tell you what's worrying is the government keeps telling us soothing lies. Burnham saying, I'm confident we'll find a way to keep those two behind bars. Well, they haven't yet. And as things stand, they will still be released next month. The government needs to get its skates on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think they may have underestimated the depth of feeling about these two and the terrible thing that they did to Andrew Harper. I think the public see this as a breakdown in our criminal justice system. People going to prison and not even serving half of their sentence, that turns the criminal justice system into a joke. And when you've got two reprobates like this giggling and laughing before they're being sentenced, I mean, that's just rubbing the nose, rubbing the noses in it of the police officers that are going out there day to day, policing the streets. And of course, the public are with the police generally. You know, they want to be police.
We're certainly with the police on this one, Chris.
Yeah, they want to live in a safe society.
Yeah. And don't forget, I mean, the petition phenomenon going over the 1 million mark comes just a couple of days after another phenomenon, if you like, that every single police chief in the United Kingdom, all 48 of them, and then also the chief of the National Crime Agency and the chief of the police in Jersey and the Channel Islands, they joined in as well. So 50 signatures of every single police chief in the United Kingdom wrote to Andy Burnham and said, don't you dare let these two killers out.
And they've finally grown with there, to be honest, Kevin, because, they've sat by while the police have been decimated over the last 10, 15 years. They've allowed numbers to drop. They've allowed the policing to be asset stripped so that they can't do the job that we want them to do. And at long last, they're actually talking about this and bringing this up. And the release of these two murderers, in my mind, just goes to show how low the criminal justice system has shrunk.
And of course, Chris, these two lowlifes would be murderers under today's system. Ironically, such was the rage after all three of the people who killed these awful young men who killed poor PC Harper. They all got manslaughter, God knows why. But of course, immediately afterwards, thanks to the impressive campaign by Andrew Harper's widow and his mum, they brought in Harper's Law, which means that if you're part of a gang that murders someone, you're a murderer too. But it's come too late for these two. They were serving, I seem to remember, 13 years, and they're going to get let out after 6 unless the government does something about it. And depressingly, Chris, I think it looks to me as if there's only one thing the government can do, and that is to say that along with sex offenders, who no longer will be released next month, nor will any manslaughterers, because if they just keep these two behind bars, there will be a confetti of lawsuits from the lawyers of all the other people behind bars for manslaughter. You let these two out.
Why? They're all in prison. They're all in prison.
Well, that's what's going to happen. It's not that simple. They cannot just let these two out. Or they cannot
None of them should be let out, should they?
Yeah, but they should. I meant to say they cannot just keep these two behind bars. If they keep these two behind bars, they have to keep every manslaughterer behind bars. That's the only solution, and I think it's going to have to be the solution.
Well, they shouldn't be letting anyone out.
Well, I agree with that.
It's already crazy sentencing, for people that have committed huge, terrible offences, rape, all these sort of things that it's completely naive to think that as a result of these people leaving the prison early, there won't be more people murdered, more people raped, and more people assaulted across the country. And for a government to be so bad at funding their criminal justice system in a way that allows society to be safe, I think they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, and, the reason they've got... So, as things stand, they were going to release 6,000 very dangerous men next month, September, when Andy Burnham stepped in and said, right, OK, I'm listening, he loves to say that, so we won't let out sex offenders, rapists and sexual assaulters. That reduced the number of dangerous men who will be released next month to 5,000. And I think probably in the end they're going to have to reduce that number again by keeping manslaughterers behind bars. But they need to get their skates on, not keep saying... Burnham's last statement on this was, I'm confident we can find a way. Well, bloody well find a way, mate, and do so fast.
I've got to say, in the early 80s, the police right across London and right across the country often were housing prisoners because the prisons were full. This is in the 1980s. Now what's happened is the government, successive governments over the last 20 years have closed all the police stations. So all the spare cells, I mean, I have sat...
Yeah, they're all blocks of flats now. They're all blocks of flats, former police stations. You know what really annoys me about... You know what really annoys me about that, Chris? You must have seen it. They tend to leave the police blue light on the front. You know, this used to be a police station. It's now luxury flats. That's the story of modern Britain. What did you make, though, Chris, of an even more depressing announcement this morning, or revelation, that the crowded prisons crisis just got worse after 3,000 cells were ruled to be unsafe due to fire risk? Well, sort that out now.
Yeah, and there are prisons that are sitting empty.
Dartmoor.
I did some work. I do some of this filming stuff, and I did some work in Reading Prison the other day. You know, that massive prison. It was allowed to go to rack and ruin and is now completely useless. So this is successive governments. I don't just blame the Labour government for this. This is successive governments not funding prisons, not funding the criminal justice system. And what's happened is we've seen crime, people committing crimes and just flouting the law. And that's not what we want from society. And I think we need people in power that actually own the problem, deal with it, and deal with prison places, police officers, numbers of police officers, and a court system that actually deals with prisoners.
Yeah, and get real. I mean, what we need are new prisons. If necessary, Nightingale prisons, like the hospitals they built in 3 weeks during the COVID crisis. Nightingale prisons, as you say, look at these prisons that have been closed down. Dartmoor, a massive prison, no longer used due to the threat of radon gas or something.
Everyone in Cornwall's living in houses that have got granite.
Exactly. You know, I'm sure you agree, but what frustrates me about this is the government keeps saying, what can we do? The prisons are too... Well, come up with a solution. Don't just say, well, we're just going to have to keep letting people out. No! Build new prisons, open prisons that you've closed down, start to make new prison space. They're not even thinking about that. It's a disgrace.
And actually community punishments, which can be used to good effect, just aren't used properly in the UK. You know, we've got our roads are just covered in litter. You go down the A3 and all you'll see is litter at the sides of the roads. Well, if we saw people who committed offences actually out in the middle of the night picking up litter, we might think actually that is a bit of a punishment and probably, you know, does take a few months off their prison sentence. Yeah, indeed.
Well, I hope the government get its act together, but I just want to stress that again to the audience, Chris, that, you know, don't get fooled by Andy Burnham going, I'm sure we can find a solution. Well, he hasn't found a solution, and the government are not showing any signs of finding that solution. And if they don't get their skates on, those two scumbags who killed Andrew Harper, PC Harper, will be released. So we're looking for action, and we're looking for action fast. Great to talk to you, Chris, as always. Thank you so much, mate. Have a great weekend. That's Chris Phillips, former DCI and head of the National Counter-Terrorism Office. What do you think, folks? Give me a call, 03444 99 1000. Those two guys are getting out unless the government gets its act together. What are your thoughts? 0344499 1000. Next up, we're going to pay tribute to the wonder of departing White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Whether or not you're a Trump fan or you're a fan of Caroline's politics, she was a phenomenon. I think she was probably the best ever press secretary at the White House, and at the risk of seeming very sexist, she was certainly the best looking. We'll pay tribute to Caroline, play you some clips of her best moments, and we'll talk to our friend Greg Swenson next. Stay tuned.
own Farage Fest last night, which was held in a paddock about 12 miles from where I am here at the pier. And that's where he delivered his victory speech before the count came in. And some view that as deeply controversial.
He went to do a victory speech at the count. What you'd have had is 30 chumps there, all sort of screaming and shouting and heckling and, you know, making a big distraction on stage. And I think he's gone, that is not the image I want projected via national television, going out to the whole of Great Britain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Tribute to the remarkable, the phenomenal Caroline Levitt. She is the departing White House press secretary. She's been there, of course, ever since Trump came into power, but she's leaving because she's only 28 years old. She's just had another kid. She's got 2 kids, and she feels that her 24/7 high-pressure job just doesn't give her enough time to pay attention to her family, to her children, and Donald Trump completely understands it, but it's one hell of a body blow to the president. Let's welcome our friend, chairman of the Republican Overseas UK organisation, Greg Swenson. Hi, Greg.
Great to see you, Kevin.
Always a pleasure. Before we talk, this is a fairly lengthy video, but I think it showcases the wonder of Caroline Levitt. Through gritted teeth, I've got to credit the BBC for putting this compilation together. So well done, the Beeb, for once. And here we go. Take it away, Caroline.
It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. Does anyone have any questions for Patty or for me? No?
I have a question.
No? Anybody?
There were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade. President Trump would allow that.
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question. Raquel. Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist.
I'm bumping along. This will likely be my last gaggle for some time. As you can see, I'm about ready to have a baby any minute. So I will see you guys very soon. I know you'll be in very good hands. As I told many of you on Friday afternoon, I thought that would be my last time taking your questions until after my maternity leave. But given the attempted assassination of the president and, quote, top Trump administration officials, as the depraved shooter noted in his manifesto at the White House Correspondents Association dinner on Saturday evening, I felt it was prudent to be here today.
And congratulations are also in order for our favorite White House press secretary, Caroline Levitt, who just had her second child. To you and your husband. She's great. She's done a fantastic job. We all love her. She's done a fantastic job. She can do another one. She can be nasty. But sometimes she has no choice, right?
Well, Greg, I mean, whatever your politics are, she was showbiz, wasn't she? She was box office. She was a phenomenon. But I do think, I think she might be the best ever White House press secretary. Did a fantastic job, didn't she?
Really amazing, Kevin. I agree with you. She was top notch and really on it. And as the president pointed out, you know, she could be nasty, but for all the right reasons. When you had those, you know, those ridiculous questions coming from the You know, I mean, I used to say liberally biased reporters, but they actually turned into activists in the last, you know, even in the first term. So good for her.
Yeah, she was only 28. Well, she is only 28 years old, and as we just saw in that compilation, recently gave birth to her second child. And you know, the president just said, "I totally understand. She needs to concentrate on her family." But that said, this is a body blow to Trump. He won't find anybody better than her, will he?
No, I don't think so. They're big shoes to fill. And, you know, he'll come up with somebody that's, you know, maybe cut from the same cloth, but I just can't imagine anybody being as good at it. And regardless of her age, I mean, she's been in, you know, in and around the White House for 10 years. So, you know, started as an intern in the first term. So she, you know, she was really good, and she'll definitely be missed.
Yeah, and you know, it's a really, really high-pressure job. It's a massive limelight that you're in, global, day by day by day. It's 24/7. You have to fly around the world. No wonder she felt, I just can't pay my kids enough attention doing this job. I think everybody would understand that. Who might step into her shoes, do you think, Craig?
You know, there's probably a few people in the communications department at the White House, but I think the president would like to pick someone from Fox News. I mean, half the administration came from Fox, it seems like sometimes. So, you know, maybe Peter Doocy from your sister station in the U.S., Fox. And he's the White House correspondent now and has spent a lot of time in that room and is pretty close to the president and was very close to Caroline.
How difficult is it at this point to sort of sell the president to the people of America? Because there's increasing disquiet, is there not, about the Iran war? That's becoming a growing problem for the president, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it depends. I mean, look, I think most of the MAGA voters are behind him on it, and they understand, you know, why he felt compelled to do it. Time is on our side, in spite of what you hear from the mainstream media in the U.S., you know, that basically want the mullahs to win, and anything that will hurt the president, they love. And so, you know, they're making it sound like, you know, the mullahs are in charge, or they're controlling the situation. It's totally far from the truth. You know, we've got the military aspect handled quite well, and then of course you have the economic fury from the Treasury Secretary. That's so, you know, look, we can wait this out. You know, whether people like to hear that is probably, you know, is not something people want to hear, but I do think we can wait it out.
How do you think the Iran war will affect the midterms? You've got the midterms coming up in November. I mean, you know, his hardcore supporters are right behind him, but a lot of supporters, previous, shall we say, floating supporters, have drifted away. The midterms could be a problem, couldn't they?
There's some, and it doesn't take much. If even just 5% of his support, you know, disappears because of the war, yeah, that's it. But it's all about gas prices. It's all about petrol prices, Kevin. So if petrol prices come down, and they are going to come down, by the time, you know, by the election, I think then we could say, hey, we won the war, and, you know, good for him for being the first president in 47 years to address the problem. So I think it could be a win, but right now it's definitely a headwind, no doubt about it.
It's what I miss about America, and why I may well still move back there, because American politicians know two things. You've got to keep the price of gas down, and you've got to keep the price of beer down. If you don't, you're screwed, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's all about gas prices now. And, you know, with gas, you know, right now being $4 a gallon, that's half of what it costs in the UK, and it's still not at Joe Biden levels. So, you know, but people have short memories. They don't really care that it's Biden's problem. You know, that inflation it was caused by Biden, and we still have some lingering effects from it. You know, they're just going to look at the price at the pump today and blame the president. You know, it's just the way it works.
Did you see these reports? I put it on my show, what just happened a couple of weeks ago. The Democrats, this is serious, are actually considering there is a possibility that their candidate for the next presidential election, probably, I guess, against J.D. Vance, might well be the dreaded Kamala word salad Harris. I mean, is that really the best this lot can do? Or that moron in California, Gavin Newsom?
Yeah, so they both have really high name recognition right now.
Yeah,
so I think that
for
will
all
change.
the wrong reasons.
Yeah, of course, but I think things can change. Remember, the Democrats have not had an open primary since 2004. You can argue that the 2008 was semi-rigged. 2012, you had an incumbent in Barack Obama. They rigged it in 16 against Bernie Sanders. They rigged it again in 20 against Bernie Sanders, and then they didn't have a primary in the last election in 24. They handpicked Kamala after Joe dropped out. So, this is new for the Democrats. If they do have an open primary and it's fairly run, which is rare for them, then I don't expect that it will be Gavin or Kamala.
So who might we be talking about then, do you think?
It's early, but it could be some of these, new popular super lefties, the progressives, the Democrat socialists, as they call themselves. So you could see AOC, you could see, even the clown in New York.
Mamdani, oh my God.
Yeah,
do you think that the Republican candidate will be J.D. Vance?
I think it will be J.D. Vance. I couldn't put a high probability, but definitely better than 50% right now. Marco Rubio's had a really good run as Secretary of State. He's really good on his feet. I think his numbers are up. So a year ago, I would have said it's J.D. Just basically walking in, but I think that
Rubio might give him a run for his money.
I think maybe, and hopefully they work it out. Hopefully they shake hands and say, okay, it's your turn.
I think they will, Greg. Greg, it's great to have you on the show. Take care now. That's Greg Swenson from Republican Overseas. We'll be back in just a minute. Stay where you are.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the final hour of a powerhouse week for Drive Time right here on Talk. It's been a very eventful week, not least last night when Nigel Farage stormed to triumph at the Clacton by-election, as we always knew he would. But I think the size of his victory, it was a bit of a body blow to the establishment candidate Count Bimface, that very unfunny BBC comedy writer. Well, he writes BBC comedy, so of course he wouldn't be funny. But we need to talk about that now with my next guest. He is the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley. Welcome, Phil.
Hi, Kev. How you doing? All right?
I'm all right. I think there are lots of things to discuss. Oh, by the way, if you're worried about the wildfires, if you're thinking that maybe you might get burned to death, don't worry. It's OK. Andy Burnham has just banned the sale of disposable barbecues. So we're all OK now.
We're all OK, yeah. Here in...
Thank you, Prime Minister, for keeping the nation safe. What a joke that guy is. He's been to Stourbridge, where there are shocking scenes, but he's just says, I've never seen anything like it. Well, you know, there's terrible, terrible scenes, real sympathy, awful for the people of that town. But I think we've all seen burnt-out houses before, but apparently not our Prime Minister. But there you are. We'll get back to him in just a little while. Let's talk about the Clacton by-election. I mean, it's a good day for Nigel Farage. He basically, people say, oh, well, why did he hold this? Why did he have this by-election? I think it's because the establishment were out to get him with the £5 million donation and all that. So he said, right, you want to stick it to me, I'll stick it back to you. So in that respect, he has triumphed now. But I do fear that what's going to happen now is the parliamentary inquiry into that £5 million will result in him being found guilty. They will suspend him long enough to trigger another by-election. He'll win that, and the circus continues. It's pretty bizarre, isn't it? Westminster democracy is not really serving the people here, is it?
No, it isn't, and I think there's a glaring example of how unserious things are, and I'll come to that in fact. I'll come to that in a minute. But you were just talking there about the establishment candidate Bimface, who is an Oxbridge graduate, BBC comedy writer. As I say, there's an oxymoron if ever.
Exactly.
But this what you were perfectly right in what you said. This was the establishment vote. This was the Labour Party, Conservative Party, Lib Dems and Green Party vote actually together in one ludicrous comedy figure, wasn't it? And it added up to 9,000 votes. So that's where we are. That's how unserious the establishment is. But I was just looking through all of the candidates and all of the nonsense candidate, but one very serious candidate leapt out at me, and that was William Clouston.
Yeah, I keep saying, I'm all for, or I agree with Farage not standing there with 33 weird losers. I kept thinking to myself, William Clouston I should not classify as a weirdo loser. He's a very serious politician and a good guy and an intelligent guy, so we should extract him from the equation.
So we extract him from the equation. We both know him, and we both know he's a formidable intellect and an excellent potential politician. That party, the Social
Democrats.
The SDP are great, but they've been given, apart from this channel and maybe one other, they've been given practically no platform whatsoever. They've been completely ignored, and they came in with under 1% of the vote. Now that is a real crying shame. If you are serious about politics, if you are serious about change, that is a crying shame. But as you say, I think this was vindication for Nigel. I think his majority is up by about 1,000, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And so I think that speaks volumes. Certainly, Clacton has said, unreservedly they want him as their politician. But as you say, next, the clown show will continue. There will be you know, there will be another by-election. He will be found guilty. But the problem is he is treated differently. This is the key point, Kev. He is treated differently to everybody else. Reform are treated differently to everybody else. They're held by different standards. The Tory party, the chairman of the Tory party at the moment is under investigation for parliamentary standards. Louise Hay, don't forget, is a convicted fraudster. So we have this situation. It's the gross hypocrisy again of the establishment. And, you know, I think Nigel is completely right, correct to use this word establishment. They are out to get him. They do treat him differently. It's almost as if everyone's forgotten about Anne Widdecombe.
Yeah, exactly right. And so today, you know, like a bunch of parrots queuing up, especially Tory luminaries, MPs and shadow cabinet ministers, plus the Lib Dems, plus the Labour, all queuing up. So it's £5 million, sleaze, £5 million. So they think they've got him on this. Well, first of all, he has won this round. He has silenced them, no matter what they say, or he's silenced the potency of what they're trying to say. But as you say, we all know they're going to find him guilty of the Parliamentary Standards Committee will find him guilty of a breach of the rules. I'm convinced they will suspend him for long enough to trigger another by-election. Now, at that, all the main parties will have to field candidates because they've committed to do that. I think he'll win that comfortably, and they'll still be screaming from the rooftops, £5 million sleaze, £5 million sleaze, but he'll be back in Parliament, and there's nothing they can do about it. And I do think that, although fiscal jealousy is quite a strong strain of the British psyche, people are getting a bit bored of this. You know, he said, look, I've taken the money, get used to it. He's won this round. I think he'll win the next round. After that, there's nothing they can do. I suspect they're beginning to score an own goal with this by repeating it until people get bored. Kemi Badenoch, I think, was useless in this Clacton issue. In the middle of the campaign, she suddenly, she makes this video and writes an article saying the people of Clacton deserve better than Nigel Farage. Well, Kemi, why didn't you put a candidate up then?
Well, where was the Tory candidate? The people, as far as she was concerned, the people of Clacton deserved Count Binface. That's it. That's all. That's all it is. Again, it's a travesty. If you're interested, if you care about democracy, my God, it's being eroded at every turn. But if the major parties care about democracy, at least they go through the motions. Kev, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that what's going to happen is Nigel's position, I think, is going to consolidate over time. It's going to become stronger and stronger and stronger because the establishment is running scared. The Uni Party is running scared. I think they realise now that they have scored an own goal. I think they realise it already because, yes, they are making noises and, yes, they're playing up this kind of 5 million absolutely for all it's worth. But don't forget, he has next to no security. Anne Widdecombe, again, I'll mention her. She was killed, horribly killed, not long ago, just a few weeks ago. And Nigel, I think this year has had 500 threats on his life. Okay, so there is a compelling narrative there that I think the British people will take really seriously. I take it seriously, okay, because you and I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of horrible stuff online.
You say that again.
But with Nigel Farage, that very easily can turn into violence. That's the key thing. And I think he's absolutely right to be concerned. I think he was absolutely right, Kev, not to turn up last night.
I agree. Couldn't agree with you more, Philip.
Why should he involve himself in that travesty, that, sending up of British politics? I think he was absolutely right to just not do it.
I reckon this might be a bit of a turning point because for Reform, let's face it, they've been going down a bit in the polls Labour have overtaken them just. But I think this by-election triumph might trigger a kind of rebound. I suspect this might be a turning point, and those parrots in Westminster, the Tories and Labour and the Lib Dems, will continue going £5 million sleaze, £5 million sleaze, and the public, I think, are beginning to get rather bored of it.
The public are getting bored of it, but I think the public are beginning to understand what's at stake, because it isn't just this, it's about policy, isn't it? And it's about sorting this country out. But what do we have? We have Andy Burnham away on holiday after 2 minutes in charge, and also banging on about Greg's pasties. Right?
Yeah.
There's nothing serious about this, for God's sake. And today, I don't know whether you've seen or viewers have seen, the Lib Dems have put together an image of Count Binface with Paddington saying, "Oh, we'll take over now." This is nonsense. This isn't serious politics. We have open borders. We have identity politics. We have Islamism. We have massive problems that we need to face, that we need to solve. And we're not going to do it with all of this nonsense. The problem is they are running scared. They just want to kind of turn people's attention away from the big issues. And what reform need to do is just say, look, these are the big issues. These are the things that we've always campaigned on. And if Nigel Farage, if he's nothing else, he is a campaigner, OK? And so that's what they need to do. They get back to the core issues and really push them at the British public, because the British public want to deal with them, Kev.
I heard Edwina Currie yesterday on Times Radio saying, saying that it was put to her, look, you know, whatever you think about Farage and Reform UK, they are the strong party on the migrant scandal, the migrant crisis. You know, they're going to do something. She said, well, it's absolute nonsense to say that's the issue that concerns people in Britain the most. It's obviously it's the economy, it's the cost of living. They will not drop that. But the fact of the matter is the economy and the cost of living, much as Edwina might like to believe it's the primary issue that concerns British people. It's important, obviously, but no, it's the migrant crisis. And the only party that are strong on the migrant crisis are Reform UK. And now we've got these proposals, these spiteful proposals by this communist Andy Burnham to impose thousands of young male migrants on rural middle-class communities. Reform's story that we will stop this is going to get more and more powerful. And in terms of those proposals, you've got this village of Piddington in Oxfordshire. You've got another village called Linton-on-Ouse up in Yorkshire. They're going to get 1,500 young male migrants right in the middle of their community. These are going to pose serious threats to the local area. They're going to pose serious threats to children and women. And we got a Prime Minister who's basically going, la, 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 let's talk about something else. And the less Labour talk about it, the more, I think, Reform's offer to the public is going to become very powerful. We will stop the boats, as opposed to Andy Burnham, who just said this week, well, I don't think there's any chance of us stopping the boats by 2029. That isn't going to sell, is it?
It really isn't going to sell, especially when he's saying that, you know, everybody has to do their bit, every area.
No, we don't, do we? We don't.
There is nothing. We have not voted for mass illegal immigration. We do not have to do our bit. We should not be paying for it. But with these tiny villages, Kev, I think it's Piddington. It's going to change the ratio of men to women is overnight going to go to 6 to 1.
6 to 1, which is that's grotesque, isn't it?
Well, it's grotesque because it's going to devastate the village. It is not going to be a village anymore. It's not going to have any kind of organic community life. But you talked about Edwina Currie before. What was her reaction to that? How did she want to solve that? She said, oh, well, we should open a brothel. Yeah. So what? Not only do we have the British taxpayer paying for all of this stuff, we have to take vulnerable women and put them into prostitution to deal with the sexual proclivities of people from third world countries. Do you know what? I'm sick of it. This is
just unbelievable, isn't it? But the thing is that with old Edwina Currie, I mean, obviously, nobody is going to be supplying these migrants with local brothels. That's not going to happen. But she has accidentally touched on something that's really serious. If you put 1,500 young males of sexually active age from cultures very different to ours in the middle of a village, in Linton-on-Ouse, the RAF camp is literally in the middle of the village. Now, that is same for Piddington, but Bicester, it's quite close to there. They're going to get 1,250. These are mega camps. 1,250 men in Piddington, 1,500 in Linton-on-Ouse, and you've already got Wethersfield, the biggest existing camp in Essex. There is a massive threat to women's safety here, and nobody's really talking about this. King Andy, who's no big fan of democracy, he seems to think he can do this with alacrity. No problem at all. I've ordained there's going to be a camp there, and that will happen because I'm the Prime Minister. It isn't going to be as easy as that, is it?
Yeah, that will happen, and we will devastate your lives. Yeah, I'm not saying Edwina Currie was being massively serious about that, but what it does do is give you an insight into the mindset and what they will not deal with the core primary problem, which is porous borders and mass immigration. They think, what do we do with the problem? How do we mitigate it? And they will come up with ridiculous things. It won't be that, but the ridiculous things won't be that far off. I think Andy Burnham's bounce, his honeymoon, is well and truly over. And yes, this is a difficult time for reform, but I think they are going to come back. All they have to do is demonstrate that they are serious, that they are all over the problems, that they are thinking, they are thinking about policy. This is the key thing. They are thinking about policy. People are desperate for serious politicians because people are frightened. We are in need of serious politicians because we're in a mess, basically.
Yeah, I got two words of advice for Andy Burnham, if he cares to listen. He's going on his cost of living tour. I want to talk to people about how we can help with the cost of living. Well, I'll tell you how you can help, Andy. Abandon all that net zero claptrap, start drilling in the North Sea and start fracking. There you go. Cost of living crisis solved. Meanwhile, you want to win the next election? You seem to assume you're going to. Well, I've got bad news for you. You won't unless you stop the boats. If you stop the boats, you'll win the next election. So, Andy, why don't you have a plan to do that? It is extraordinary. His only plan is to expand the accommodation for the illegal migrants that he clearly intends to carry on letting into the country in their thousands. He has no plans to stop this, just plans for expanded accommodation right in the middle of middle-class communities. It's a disgrace, actually.
It's a disgrace, isn't it? And they are just managing the damage that has been carried out in their name. OK, and what I'm talking about, their ideology, and I include the Tory party in that over the last 10 years. They are just managing this terrible damage to our society, our economy, our culture, and they have no solution. There is no solution whatsoever. And people know that. People know he is an empty vessel. People very, very quickly are going to get fed up with him talking about Greg's pasties.
I already am. Listen, Philip, we're going to go to break now, but you're going to stay with us. So everybody, stay where you are because me and Philip will be back in just a minute after these messages. Stay tuned.
his own Farage Fest last night, which was held in a paddock about 12 miles from where I am here at the pier. And that's where he delivered his victory speech before the count came in. And some view that as deeply controversial.
He went to do a victory speech at the count. What you'd have had is 30 chumps there, all sort of screaming and shouting and heckling and, you know, making a big distraction on stage. And I think he's gone, that is not the image I want projected via national television, going out to the whole of Great Britain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Philip Kisley, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Philip, this is our Prime Minister with a dreary inevitability. He looked at the wildfires. He went to Stourbridge, which has been tragically burnt out by a series of infernos. And, of course, he said, well, this means we need to double down on our green energy policies. Here he is.
Obviously, there's other adjustments that we need to make in relation to climate change. We might be in for a wet autumn and winter straight after this because of El Nino and some of the issues there, which was reported to Cobra. So after fire could come floods. So, you know, we have to face up to the changing climate. And I think we need a different debate about that. There's no point denying where we are. We need to face up to it. We need more clean energy. We need to see that transition accelerate. Those are all of the issues that, you know, are now in discussion.
So, Philip, he's got no plans to stop the boats. He just plans to carry on lying to us that Labour's plan to stop the boats is working. That's his approach to the issue that really concerns people in Britain the most. What we'd all like to see, I think, is less of this green claptrap so we could have a few more quid in our pockets. As I said earlier, how about start drilling again in the North Sea, start fracking and stop all this nonsense. That would save us all a fortune. And yet, of course, as I said earlier, Ed Miliband, Crazy Ed, may no longer be Energy Secretary, Nut Zero Secretary, but his green insanity lingers on, and the Prime Minister is spewing it out. He's going to double down on the policies that make no sense, that cost us a fortune. It's so depressing, isn't it?
Well, it is depressing because changes in our policy are not going to make one iota of difference to the climate.
And they're not going to stop wildfires. They're not going to stop wildfires.
He was actually saying there, you know, climate change. We need to tackle climate change. We can't tackle climate change, whatever that is. We just can't because of China, because of America, because of India. We are not responsible for any of that stuff. Anything we do will not have an impact. Then you get to the fires. It would be great if people, individuals, took responsibility and didn't take barbecues out onto dry grass. That would be a really
well, they
good
can't now, Philip, because the Prime Minister has statesman-like issued a massive ban on disposable takeaway barbecues. So, wow. I mean, wow. Don't forget he had an emergency Cobra meeting about the weather. As one of my audience pointed out to me, brilliantly, I thought, well, you know, by all means, have a Cobra meeting about the soaring heat weather if it's still around in November. Don't worry too much in August.
In August and July. Exactly. But also think about the infrastructure. Actually invest in the infrastructure. So I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was travelling down to London from sub-Saharan Yorkshire. And there was a fire on the line at Wakefield. And I was stranded for an hour and a half on the train, okay, late for filming and everything. So what we need to do is think about, you know, we've had trains derailed 2 days in a row here. So what we need to do is think about the infrastructure and make the infrastructure and the areas around the infrastructure fit for purpose in warm weather. That's what we need to do. It's the same thing with, you know, making sure that areas which are arid and dry, just make sure they're not going to set on fire. It's not massively difficult to think about. It's fairly easy, and it's about spending money in the right way and having the priorities. But the key thing is, Kev, you could see on his face, this is glee, isn't it? This is going to take away from the real big issue.
Yeah, I haven't seen him so excited since he announced that he was going to impose migrants on middle-class communities. I mean, this guy is, I think he's an empty vessel, but he's a sort of Marxist. He's a communist. We have been subjected to a communist coup d'etat, I think.
Yeah, this is authoritarian, isn't it? But it not only is it authoritarian, it keeps us a little bit in our place, but it also, for him, it's almost, I can demonstrate I'm doing something. It's totally inconsequential, but people think I'm doing something. So that's what this is all about. It's all about PR. And I'm sure he's thinking to himself, my God, please keep the hot weather going, because it takes people's minds off stuff, and I can demonstrate, I can do these little silly things, and people think I'm, you know, it's all of these silly things
that ridiculous.
Keep rolling out, and we're not interested. We want the big stuff sorting out, because it's 5 to 12.
Absolutely right, and I think the Burnham bounce is going to go flat very, very soon, far faster than Mr. Burnham imagined. Philip, fantastic to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. That's Philip Kisley, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. When we come back, it's you for the rest of the show. I've got lots of calls, but get involved, 03444991000. I'll read out some of your messages. Don't know if we've got any WhatsApp voice notes, but if we have, I'll play them out. So lots still to come. Stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'll read some of your message in a minute, then we'll go to the phones. But first, here is a voice note from Nicola on Nigel Farage.
I think Nigel will get through this. £5 million to fight the system. That's what, you know, that's what he has to spend. He has to spend a lot of money on fighting his way through things to get us a good life, a decent life. And I think all these men that are coming over, they're all fighting age, all coming into the country illegally. Aren't they supposed to stay in their countries and fight for their countries and push their families across? That's the bit I don't understand. Great show.
Nice voice note, Nicola, but I can tell you why these young men of fighting age come to this country, because they're chances, they're economic chances. They're not fleeing war and torture, all but a handful of them. They're all liars. Criminals as well, because they break our laws. They come across the channel illegally in unlawful vessels, these bigger and bigger mega dinghies, and then they break into our country. So they're criminals and they're liars, and yet we let them in and treat them like honoured guests. It's bizarre. On the topic of migrants, here's another voice note from Perry.
I think it's a great idea that all these migrants are going to be sent to Piddington. I think it's great that the women are going to be outnumbered 6-1 because it's what they voted for. They voted for Labour that has a policy of open borders. So they voted for it. They should have it. I have no sympathy for them. Now, if they don't want it to happen, then maybe they should vote for someone else that promises to stop it. Why should the rest of us have it when they voted for it? You know, it's a democracy. They've got what they voted for. Good luck. I hope they settle in.
Well, Perry, I think that's a little unfair to the people of Piddington. You don't know how they voted. You don't know how the people of Linton on Ouse voted. You can't just say everyone voted for Labour. That's unfair. I don't agree with that at all. And it is not a great idea to put migrants in the middle of middle-class communities. It's a disgusting, spiteful idea. But I appreciate the voice note. By all means, send me another one. I just don't quite agree with you there, Perry. But thanks for sending it. Let's read some messages. This is from Christina in Spain. Good for Nigel, standing up to the bullies, and he only got 2,000 votes less than bumbling Burnham, and he's the Prime Minister. We need to persuade Robert Bates and Mike Neville to run for Parliament. I think at least one of them wants to, and that would be Mike Neville. Great show as always. Thank you very much, Christina. This is Mike in Lincoln. You know, every time I hear Andy Burnham speak, the more I become convinced the man's an imbecile. He really doesn't have a clue, an objective, or even a plan to rescue this nation of ours. It's getting more depressing by the day. I could not agree with you more, Mike. What is this guy? Who is he? What does he believe? You know, what are his plans apart from, you know, nonsense about more and more mayors, deranged devolution? He doesn't have any plans that we're interested in, does he? This is Amanda in London. She says the aftermath of the Clacton by-election is a juvenile fiasco. The public are fed up with the left's games, and all true patriots will stand firm with Reform UK. I think you got a good point there, Amanda. I think people are fed up with, just fed up with this nonsense. They're fed up with the Count Bin-Face syndrome, and they're fed up with an establishment who are doubtless going to impose yet another Clacton by-election on an unsuspecting nation. Here's Leslie in Hartley. She says, poor old Andy. It might be wet. Seriously, we used to just call it sunshine or rain. None of this hysteria. Yeah, I mean, you know, terrible scenes in Stourbridge. You know, nobody likes a wildfire. But here's the secret truth that our political class and the BBC don't want us to know. People are loving this summer. We're having a great summer. I'm loving it. Aren't you loving it? I mean, what's not to like about lovely sunny days? Come on. Come on. It's ridiculous. And it'll be over. I don't want to be depressing. It'll be over soon. It'll be over soon and we'll be back to normal. It'll pee with rain in September and October, doubtless, without a doubt, actually. And then we'll forget about this wonderful summer. But it has been a wonderful summer, and it continues to be a wonderful summer, and I, for one, am loving every second of it. This is from Julie in Hitchin. I feel at bursting point. A few things I grew up in Braintree, and there were still US airmen at Wethersfield, which is in a cluster of small villages. The thought of over 1,000 illegals flooding into them makes me sick to my stomach. Yeah, there's something like about 1,300 migrants in Wethersfield, former RAF and US Air Base, and that is now our biggest migrant camp, but soon we're going to get even bigger migrant camps unless the locals succeed in stopping them. This is, I'll read the last minute. This is from Sim in Wanstead. Great show, Kev. Thank you very much, Sim. Instead of spending that money on brothels, why not build a classroom and teach these men about our customs, our views towards women, and teach them the consequences of their actions if they harm our women or girls? That will be a money better spent. Yeah, I agree with you, Sim. Yeah, all sorts of things should be done to prevent this threat to women's safety. It's a real scandal. Let's go to the phones now. Let's talk to Joan in Sunderland. Hi, Joan.
Hello there. I've got a comment and a question. We must be the laughing stock of the world at what took place in Clacton. And quite honestly, when I saw that group picture, it looked like the final curtain for a student production of The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I absolutely agree with Nigel Farage. I think he should have just said, he said there was a threat to his safety. I don't think he needed to say that. I think if I was him, I'd have just said, I'm not going to take part in that clown show. I'm not going to stand next to a tin can. I'm not going to do it. So.
Well, I'm going to talk about the tin can if I can.
Yes, please.
If Binface had won, would we see him going to Parliament and take his oath wearing a pedal bin?
Probably. I don't. No, I think there are sartorial requirements in the House of Commons, so I think he would have had to take his bin off. But Joan was the establishment candidate. Make no mistake.
Exactly.
All the lefties, all the Guardian readers, the BBC, they loved Count Binface because he's one of them. He doesn't know anything about comedy. He's not funny. We know that because he's a BBC comedy writer. He went to Oxford University. He is the establishment, and frankly, Nigel Farage thrashed him. He stuck it to the establishment last night, but I fear, Joan, he's going to have to do it again because the Parliamentary Standards Committee will find him guilty of breaking the rules over that £5 million bung. Then they'll suspend him long enough to trigger another by-election. I just think that the people of this country deserve better than this ongoing circus, which is all aimed at trying to bring Nigel Farage and Reform down, don't you?
It is, that's all it is. And it's an absolute disgrace. But we all know what's going to happen. We know the conclusion. He's going to be found guilty.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then there'll be another by-election. As I say, he will win that. And this time the main parties will have to field candidates. And after that, will they shut up? No, they won't. They'll carry on, and the circus continues. We deserve better than this. We really do. The establishment have got to, just wind their necks in. This is getting ridiculous. He took a £5 million gift from Christopher Harborne, the crypto billionaire. Get used to it. And the more they drone on about it, the more people will get used to it. I suspect this might be the beginning of a big rebound for Reform UK. It was a bad day for the establishment and a great day for Nigel Farage. Joan, thanks for ringing. Really good call. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Joan in Sunderland. Let's go to Matt in Cheshire. Hi, Matt.
Hi, good evening, Kev. It was about Edwina Currie.
Yeah.
And
her proposal for brothels around migrant camps,
Yeah, I mean, you just read a text out saying we should educate them into... I mean, what we're doing now, we're starting to enable them and enable the parties that are allowing them in. Surely that's the opposite of what we should be doing. We should be offering them nothing. And as we know, some of these men are sort of dark age attitudes to women.
They do. Many of them come from medieval cultures in which women are very much second-class citizens. They have incredibly different attitudes to women to the attitude we have here. And therein lies the problem. Now, Matt, Edwina Currie was kind of joking, saying we'll have to set up brothels nearby, but she's alluding to a serious problem. 1,500 young males in the middle of a village in Yorkshire, Linton-on-Ouse, they are going to present serious problems to women's safety.
I mean, the thing is, Kev, do people who went to fight away in the Second World War, did they get brothels when they were in the sort of in the jungle during the Second World War? And what we really have to think about here is why did she say it, and why are we even considering their needs?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. It was a weird thing to say, but it does shine a light on the fact, you know, these young men do have needs, and that raises the grim prospect of a serious issue of women's and children's safety in the areas where Andy Burnham is revelling in plonking massive migrant camps into the middle of middle-class communities, spiteful little commie that he is.
I mean, I love the fact that you're using that word, Kev. I really do, and I respect you very much for that, because that's exactly what it is. I know these people from my area, Jonathan Reynolds, Lucy Powell, Angela Rayner. These people are horrific sort of low lives, and they will be reveling in this as well.
Yeah, they love it. They're using, or Andy Burnham and his crowd are using migrants as a kind of weapon to beat middle-class people over the head with, and saying, well, you've all got to play our part, we've all got a responsibility. No, we haven't. Be you working class or be you middle class or upper class, none of us have a responsibility to accommodate young men who broke into this country illegally. He should get that through his thick head, shouldn't he?
Yeah, the thing is, Kev, it's gone on for that long now that we're all been browbeaten, haven't we, to a point where the anger has subsided now, and it's, oh, well, it's here, well, how can we deal with it, what we're going to do? I'm still at stage one. Don't let them.
Yeah, that's it, Matt. That's it, Matt. Let's you know, route one is this. You know, I don't want to know about Andy Burnham's new and interesting plans to find more fascinating places to accommodate these migrants he wants to keep carrying on letting into the country. I want him to stop the bloody boats. Why can't he get that through his head?
Because I think part of me, Andy Burnham was always going to follow Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer was like the appalling warm-up act, leading to the socialists that they all really love in the Labour Party. So I think this is their dream, is rubbing it in the faces of the...
They are. You're right, Matt. They are living a socialist dream now. They've got the power. They've got a vast majority in the House of Commons, and they are imposing on this nation very, very vehement socialism. The middle-class migrant proposal was right out of the communist textbook. It's really, really worrying. But I just think we should resist, not let them get away with it. Matt, I've got to move on, but excellent call. Thank you very much for ringing. Call me again. Matt in Cheshire with an excellent call there. Let's go to break. Got more calls waiting. I'll read some more messages. We've still got lots to come, and Peter Cardwell will be in later to tell you what he's got lined up for you between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock, because it is my show, my TV show, What Just Happened, at 9 o'clock tonight. I'll let you know more about that in just a little while, so stay tuned.
Farage fest last night, which was held in a paddock about 12 miles from where I am here at the pier. And that's where he delivered his victory speech before the count came in. And some view that as deeply controversial.
He went to do a victory speech at the counts. What you'd have had is 30 chumps there, all sort of screaming and shouting and heckling and, you know, making a big distraction on stage. And I think he's gone, that is not the image I want projected via national television, going out to the whole of Great Britain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A couple of more texts that I've received. Leslie asking about these Vodafone SIM cards. She says, I wonder how many of these Vodafone SIM cards go to the homeless and the really needy British people. Well, very few, it seems. It seems that we prefer to hand them out to illegal migrants. Special, that, isn't it? And Susan says, enough is enough. Migrants boasting they don't have to pay for gyms or driving lessons, etc. In Italy, they get no translation, no hospital, no dentists. And they were getting in food, €3 for food, but they get nothing. We need to do the same. They get €3 for food in Italy. We give them instantly, the moment they break into our country illegally, we give these migrants £50 a week benefits. Isn't that special? Not to mention free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers, free driving lessons, free trampoline lessons, free trips to the zoo, and on the list goes. Why do we treat these criminals who break into our country illegally like honoured guests? Suicidal empathy, folks. It is killing this nation. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Sophie. She's a new caller. As you know, I love a new caller, and Sophie's in Manchester. Hello, Sophie.
Hi.
What would you like to say?
I love you to bits.
Oh, thank you very much. Right back at you.
I've just moved back in with my parents at 42 with a 6-year-old because I live in a 9-house street and there's a HMO bang in the middle of it. They're in and out like you wouldn't believe.
Really?
Bang, 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 music.
So Sophie, you were in a, sorry to interrupt, but you were in a street full of houses of multiple occupation, full of migrants.
Yeah, there's loads of them.
And it became intolerable. You couldn't live there anymore.
Yeah, we're back with parents.
Tell us a bit about, Sophie, what the asylum seekers in these HMOs were getting up to. Why was it so difficult to live next to them?
Pictures out of the window when they're pretending to be on FaceTime, whatever, to family. My next door but one neighbour has actually had enough. He's put his house up for sale when he's just had it all done up, and he's sold his house and they're off as quick as a fire.
And you've had to get out of there with your kid and move back in with your parents at the age of 42. You shouldn't have to live like this, should you?
With a 6-year-old.
You shouldn't have to live like this, should you?
No, I can't afford, you know, a new house or even to get on the council list because I do have a nice place to live.
Yeah.
And so does my daughter. What? I don't have a new phone. I don't get free glasses, free shopping.
Yeah. What was the street like before they started moving the migrants in?
Lovely. 9 houses on that street, absolutely beautiful. We live next to a church, loads of greenery, everything, and now all you hear is either boom, boom, boom. Oh.
Do they hang around outside their houses and stuff?
Yes, and they're out from about 6 in the morning. They'll wander off down there. They also have jobs. as well. As
which they're not,
Uber
which
drivers,
they're not
other-
supposed to
other
have, I don't
people-
think.
Other people are available, but they'll go out in the morning, they'll come back and they'll go and do that. I'm not having my 6-year-old around that.
Well, I think you've done the right thing. I'm really, really sorry you've had to do that. But, I mean, you know, needs must,
like.
I guess.
Andy Burnham was on my street now where I live. I won't mention the name, obviously, but I do not vote for that guy. He hasn't got a clue what's going on.
Couldn't agree with you more, Sophie. You know, I think we got a loser on our hands trying to run the country. He doesn't care about people like you. He doesn't care about streets like the street you used to live on. He's prepared to infest this country with more and more illegal migrants, and it's such a shame. It's changing the face of this country. Sophie, I've got to move on, but it was a great call, and please call me again. We'll talk again. Good to talk. Sophie in Manchester. Terrible that, though, isn't it? Terrible. Sums it up. Let's talk to Matthew in Warrington. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Kev. You've been firing on all cylinders this week, aren't you?
I've had a lot of material to work with, Matthew.
I'll tell you what, mate, you've earned your pint tonight when you finish your shift.
Thank you. I have.
Yeah, no, mate, you know what? Farage is 5 million. They're going to go and keep pushing it because behind that, Labour is going to be pushing their rhetoric of what they've been doing all along. Did you notice today, and I wish you'd do it, clean your teeth, burn them. When you go and tell it, I want my Prime Minister to have clean teeth, not clemmy teeth that it looks like he's not brushed them for a week.
I hadn't noticed that thing about it.
Have a look at it. Have a look.
I will.
Some Colgate.
So what you're saying, Matthew, is he's got crap teeth as well as all his other problems.
Well, he's spouting a load of BS, and I bet it smells just as bad. So, but if you didn't notice today, he's mentioned net zero. Well, we need to get to clean energy.
God, doesn't
again.
that depress
so
you?
Popped that one in. So he's not going to get rid of net zero.
Of course he's not. He's going to double down on it, Matthew. He's going to make it worse.
He's going to make it absolutely worse, and then he's going to, he's pushing all these migrants out into in the shires, as I say. So he's going to rub everyone up the wrong way. People have already made their mind up about Farage, whether he's took a dodgy 55 million or not. He's not stupid, Farage. He's been doing this 25 years. He known when they got that money that there's going to be a bit of noise behind it. So he must know, but he also knows he's going to get a kangaroo court.
No, he's going to be found guilty of breaking the rules, and then there'll be another by-election which he'll win. But I think you're right, Matthew. I think people are, the 5 million quid, it's a valid issue, but people are getting bored of it.
It's old news. Just move
it
on.
is. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
The thing is, they don't want Farage and Reform out in the press pushing their agenda out because it stops them, so they can carry on doing. He lost because he was doing the Clacton
by-election.
The by-election, he couldn't focus on the Manchester one.
No, that's true. Yeah, you're right.
And I'd have loved him to win Manchester, and I think he could have done it if he'd have had the resources, but he can't do two at once. But they're just going to keep pushing and pushing to keep Farage
the establishment want to destroy him. They want to bring him down, but they picked on the wrong guy. He is resilient. Teflon Farage. He's going to live to fight again. Matthew, brilliant call. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Matthew in Warrington there. Let's talk to Peter in Dorset. Hi, Peter.
Hello there. Good evening. You talk about the socialist dream. I think they're living in the socialist dream world. The situation is that we have the vast majority of the people in this country are legally here, and they're not illegal migrants. And as far as I'm concerned, this government is playing with absolute fire with the people.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, they're dancing on the edge of catastrophe, I think. They're not listening to us. They don't care what we care about. We want the Prime Minister and the government to stop the boats, and he's not even prepared to discuss that with us.
Not only have certain parts of certain cities and certain areas been taken over in some respects, from what I've seen, a really horrible takeover, effectively. But now it's bully boy tactics. It's now sticking 1,500 migrants in a 300 people village.
Yeah, because you're middle class. We're gonna use the migrants to beat you over the head with because you're middle class and we don't like you. It's sheer spite, Peter.
I don't believe anybody has thought through what the majority of the people will end up doing in this country, if push comes to shove.
Yeah.
Because I really, we're a very peace-loving, just type of country. But I'm afraid you push the human being over the edge. It doesn't matter whether you're British or you come from somewhere else. And I believe they are playing with fire, and they have no idea by putting these hundreds and thousands of migrants all over the country what it'll end up doing.
Yeah, you're so right. It's really alarming, and I agree with you. I don't think that Burnham or his gormless government have any idea the fire they're playing with here.
And if you see what's gone on in other countries in history, I know we're the United Kingdom. We think we must be infallible, but if you look at around the world and see what's happened when you've had majority of a certain faith, whatever, come in and start moving in and taking over and all the rest of it, you get into.
Yeah, we have to think historically, are we kind of in the last days of Rome? It kind of increasingly feels like that to me. Peter, really good call. I've got to move on, though. Thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend. Peter in Dorset. And I've got another Peter in the studio. It's Peter Carswell. See that link? You see,
seamless.
That's why I get the big...
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Small bucks.
That's why they pay you the big bucks. Lots on Clacton, lots on the fires. Also, is China funding pro-Palestinian marches in the UK? We'll talk about that.
Almost certainly.
Well, yes, why channel migrants are being given free SIM cards as well. And also, has the kiss been given the kiss of death?
The kiss? Tell me about that. What do you mean?
Well, we're talking about snogging. So dating has changed, how it's all changed post-pandemic.